Well, it was just strange to have a different.
Yeah.
Y'all ready? Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Washington Unified School District Board of Education meeting on this November the 14th. Let the record reflect that we have all board members present, and we have one item that will be in for a closed session. Item 1 is Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. We'll be back hopefully within an hour. Thank you. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? I'd like to welcome you to the Washington Unified School Board meeting this November the 14th. And we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Jim Lockhart if he would lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. I'd like the record to reflect again that we have all board members present tonight. And I'd like to announce the action or the items in closed session. Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. We just received information. Next is our communication and celebrations, my favorite time of the meeting. And so I'll turn that over to Dr. Gilliland.
Thank you, President Leland. Tonight we have a celebration of sorts. I'd like to draw the board's attention to our Project Heat kickoff yesterday. In fact, at Riverbank, we had a very successful event that really, I think, captures our partnership with Chevron Energy Solutions. We had engineers on campus, about 7 engineers working with 30 science students in 7th and 8th grade, and they became junior engineers, and it was a very good event. This is something that we look to replicate at our other K-8 schools. We had, at the end of the day, science teachers from all of our schools converge on Riverbank, and they talked about the program and participated in some of the debrief, if you will, but it was very exciting to see the kids engaged in the actual assessment of energy in the classrooms. HEAT stands for Hands-On Environmental Assessment Team. So they were equipped with the tools to go into classrooms and determine our efficiencies in terms of energy use. And they're going home to basically harp at their folks about closing the refrigerator door when they're looking for what to eat. So I think it's going to raise our social consciousness, but it really helps empower our kids to experience a project-based learning piece. We did have some media attention here on the campus. That was great news. We had channel Fox 40 we had, and also NBC, Channel 3 present. There's a little clip here I'd like to show at this point. We can't enlarge this at this point, but we will receive this in a different format so we can show it full screen. But if you bear with me, I think it's worth viewing. Because it's so good. Again, we'll receive this in a DVD format, so we'll be able to show it big screen eventually and post it on our webpage. Okay.
Yeah, I think while they're rebooting it, we'll move on to our Student Association report.
Okay. Over at River City High School, our last home football game of the year has sadly already passed. The game took place on Friday, November 8th, 2013. This event was very memorable for our senior football players and our senior cheerleaders as well. Each athlete was given their spotlight on the field as they were announced one by one in front of the entire audience. When their names were announced, their parents were then able to greet them in the middle of the field with a rose and a huge hug, which was captured by the cameras of our school's photography class. This was a great way to show off our senior players and congratulate them for their hard work on and off the field. There are a few other important people out at our football games, however, that we can't forget about. There are the ones whose beats and rhythms echo across our campus in the mornings and again later on the field, pumping up our football players and audience with adrenaline and excitement. And those special people make up our River City High School marching band. The seniors of our marching band were also given recognition on that night for all their hard work and preparation into their many well-choreographed and spectacular performances led by their teacher, Mr. Marvelli. The fourth set of seniors that were also celebrating their senior night were our River City Color Guard members. We hope that this celebration will become an annual event celebrated at our senior night game as well. More decisions have been made on our upcoming winter formal, or as I should say more formally, our winter ball. The ball will take place on Friday, December 13th, a week before our winter break. A dinner will be provided for our students on that evening beginning at 6:30 p.m. The dinner will be catered by the Old Spaghetti Factory, who will provide us with a buffet of meat sauce spaghetti, chicken fettuccine, and for our vegetarians, spinach and cheese raviolis. Along with their meals, students will be provided with a side salad and warm bread as well. Our winter rally will also be taking place that day and will have a Nightmare Before Christmas theme. Our sophomore class is currently in charge of the event and have begun their work on the decorations, games, and performances. Next week, we'll be having our second food day event on Friday, November 22nd. Our classes will be catering all types of food such as McDonald's, Little Caesars Pizza, Oscars, Jamba Juice, and much more. This food day will be our enormous Thanksgiving feast to celebrate with all of our students just before they leave for a very much-needed Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Now I'd like to ask our CSEA representative to come forward. Deborah, welcome.
Good evening. I would just want to let you guys know I have some sad news. We lost an employee by the name of Vicki Peterman. To say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Don Stauffer for our WTA report. Good evening, Don.
Good evening. How are you all? Obviously, still foremost on our agenda is wrapping up the bargaining issues that we started with the district on last month. The only bad part of this is we've only been able to have 2 meetings so far. We've got several scheduled in the next week or two, so I'm hoping we can get most things wrapped up. I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the way things are moving, and I feel that everybody's going into the process with a positive attitude and wanting to come to a happy solution. I'd like to thank the 3 board members who were able to make it to our rep council meeting this week. It was very nice. I've gotten lots of good feedback from teachers. They really appreciated hearing from you and able to speak with you. Based upon that, I'd like to schedule another one probably for spring sometime, and hopefully the 2 members who weren't able to come on Tuesday can come to that one. Also like to thank Alicia Cruz for her work on the Veterans Day Parade. I was able to go out there with a couple teachers and help out. It was a fun event. There were a lot of people there, a lot of participants. One of the groups that really intrigued me was AmeriCorps, which Alicia invited out to the event, and I got to speak with many of the volunteers. One group of which is preparing to go up to Mendocino County to work on gardening programs for schools in the Fort Bragg area, and the Mendocino equivalent of the Farm to Fork program, and that just got me perked up again on that particular thing. And I know many of you are involved in that process, so I was thinking, I wonder if we can bring AmeriCorps here and have them help us out, get that jump started in our district. Any case, thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Okay, and next we'll go into our public comments. Item K, I have just one public comment. Ms. Valencia.
Hi.
Welcome.
It's actually in regards to, I believe, what was discussed in the closed session. Ms. Maria Moraes.
She's a teacher at Alice Norman School. I don't think she should be.
Can I just clarify the public comments and then we'll have you start over?
I'm sorry. I was told that I should show up and just voice my opinion. So.
Oh, that's absolutely great, and that's what public comments are for. I just want to read the directions. I forgot to do that, so we'll start you over again.
Okay, sounds good.
Public comments consisting of individual charges, complaints, or derogatory remarks about any district employee are requested to be submitted in writing to the administration in accordance with the district's complaint procedure. And then also we have a total time of 3 minutes, and so I failed to mention that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I have written an email, and I have taken those steps. I was told to come and just express my opinion and my concern, I guess you could say, about the situation at hand. And I feel as though by me being present, it will let you know how important it is that something be done with the situation. That's basically it. If there's anybody else I could contact in regards to the situation, I would love to do so.
Okay.
So.
All right. I urge you to talk to the superintendent or staff. They would be happy to get your name and number and follow up with you.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming out here tonight. Okay, next is board superintendent comments and committee updates. So I always want the board comments first and any updates. And I think we've already heard a couple on Project Heat and Veterans Day, but I'm looking over here. I would like Ms. Cruz to start because I know she's got a lot to share this week.
Not a lot, but some.
Oh, you have a lot.
I was fortunate enough to get to the HEAT program over there at Riverbank Elementary, and I was very impressed to see that we as a board just approved the Chevron project and how fast it was implemented. Yeah. And these youngsters from Chevron, the young engineers, took the students, put them in groups, and they all broke up, went to different classrooms, gyms, checked the humidity, checked the heat, came back to the library, reported, and they learned a lot. They calculated the kilowatts. They also calculated how much the district is spending on electricity and maybe air going out the window. So it was a very good experience. And I do challenge the board at some point for all of us to get together ourselves, go out with the engineers and to some of the schools, use the same tools that Adam uses every day. And it's just a great experience, and I'm so excited to see them doing this, and they're taking it back home. And so if you have any kids that went to Riverbank, I'm sure they're telling you to turn off the lights, don't let the water drip, and check in the air. So it was a great experience. And also, I want to thank Dawn for the comments about Veterans Day Parade. The WTA did come out and provide water to all the participants. It was a great experience to have in West Sacramento to support our veterans and have a day for them. And a first appearance from our own River City High School ROTC was a very great experience for those kids. They were so happy they won a trophy for the first time. So I am so glad that we brought that program to River City. And not to leave out Mr. Marvelli, because he always has a fantastic band, but it's always great to see the support. We also had Westmore Oaks band. What a surprise, because they do have a large band too. So it's so important that we participate in the community events, and had a great time. So thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Cruz. Do I have other reports? Board Member Kirby Gonzalez.
Okay. My toddler loved dancing to the band, and thank you for organizing the Veterans Day Parade. That was great. A few things have happened. One, the Bridgeway Habitat is off to a great start, and it was really great to see the volunteers that we had out there working hard. Mr. Lansberger and I did the Rec Center Safe Trick-or-Treat event, and thank you for coming out. It was great. We got to see lots of families and have some really good conversations with people. And today I delivered to Matthew at Southport. He was our raffle winner. Pepperoni pizza, chocolate milk, carrots, and fruit cup. So that was our raffle prize was a lunch. The preschool commission had their meeting, and I was excited to hear that they are collecting data for kids all the way through 3rd grade to see how they're doing and go back and track and see how our preschool programs and the city programs are making an impact on the kids here. It may be ongoing, or it may just be a one-time thing. They're going to explore that, but that was an exciting thing. Also, we had the Harvest Festival. I know many schools did. Westfield and Bridgeway are the 2 we went to, and just did a wonderful job. It was great to be there. And the last thing is, I appreciated the DTAC meeting. That's our district technology meeting, and I'm excited for where we're going to go with that with our new Director of Technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Villegas.
I had just a few things to comment on. I just want to remind folks tomorrow is the 15-year anniversary of the YOLO First 5 Commission. That's the Prop 10 Commission. It's the 50-cent tobacco tax that pays for tons of programming throughout Yolo County, but especially Universal Preschool here in West Sacramento, over $1 million a year, actually. And they've been invested in that program for a long, long time. And that celebration is tomorrow in Woodland. On the 23rd of November, the Yolo County Children's Alliance will have our annual community giveaway day, and we're serving 400 families with coats, food, and blankets and household items. So we're looking forward to that. It's a pre-registration this year, and we are at about 311 families. So we'll cap it at about 350. And then there is a food court, but I don't know where Dawn went, but I'm on a food committee for West Sacramento and Yolo County, and we're looking at bringing those folks here to do more urban gardening throughout West Sacramento. So exciting stuff happening with that. I'll keep you posted as I learn, but I know Alicia is familiar with that too. And I just want to say a shout out to Alicia for taking over that Veterans Day parade, because
I know.
I've done that before, and it's a lot of work, and it's pretty thankless, and it's glad to see that you're doing it. Thank you for doing it.
They're looking for a chair next year.
I vote for you. Thanks.
Okay, Board Member Minke.
I want to just kind of piggyback a little bit on Sarah. I went with her to the DTAC meeting, talked about a lot of great things. We had a presentation about some kids using iPads, or not iPads, but different devices in classrooms and how they would work and integrate into classrooms so they can get using technology. And we had a lot of great discussions about how we're going to look at the infrastructure of our IT department, and a lot of great conversations. So if anybody's out there that's wants to come and share or listen or contribute to that, it's an amazing discussion in our district, and I think we're going to do a lot of great things. So it's exciting as well. I also went to the Harvest Festival at Stonegate. I'm a little biased because my daughter goes to Stonegate. And I was able to attend the Blackbeard the Pirate play at Stonegate, which is an amazing thing that they do there. They go out for a grant for this play, and she gets this grant to pay for this company to come in and put on the entire play. They come in the first week, they do auditions, they bring in all the children that want to come, and they put them in this play, and it's a fabulous event. And they're even talking about doing it again. I think it's an amazing thing, and I hope and Mr. Solaire said that he would talk to other schools and offer that to other schools to do that as well, because it's a great enrichment thing for children to get involved in plays and art and things of that nature in our schools. So I want to say thank you to Miss Arnold, because she writes that grant, the kindergarten teacher at Stonegate. It's an amazing experience to watch those kids get up there and sing and dance, and it's a lot of fun. So that's it. Thanks.
Wow, great reports. And I just wanted to reiterate what we've said about Project Heat that went on at Riverbank yesterday. That is so exciting, and I know that it's going to really generate revenue for our district, and it really will enhance the project-based learning that will lead us into the Common Core. And those are some of the comments that were made by the superintendent on the news. Since we didn't get to see the clip, I thought it was important for you to hear that, because it really is real-world experience using real skills. And so, yes, Adam can go out with us and kind of help teach us some of the skills that the students are getting in the classroom at Riverbank. And then I just wanted to emphasize a couple of other highlights from some of the other schools that Well, we're on Riverbank, and I just wanted to say, they have a connection with Mandavi Center Performances, so I think that is really exciting. A partnership with such an incredibly visible performing arts center in our region, and to have that partnership at Riverbank is very exciting for our kids and really leads us into our visual and performing arts plan. I think it's a good connection. And also, I just wanted to point out, again, at Riverbank, I did not realize that they had a junior ACE program, which is architecture, construction, and engineering. And that is super exciting also, and feeds into our career tech upcoming plans. So that was neat. I hadn't really heard a lot about Project ACE until recently. And then at Elkhorn, I just want to do a shout out to them. I know that IKEA has designed and sponsored a library remodeling. I think that is so cool that we have a community, a business visible like IKEA that's working with Elkhorn. And so we're all looking forward to coming out to Elkhorn. I think November the 20th is the kind of open house to see what IKEA has done with remodeling that library, and that's pretty exciting. So we congratulate Elkhorn on also that partnership with the community. And then also we learned at Elkhorn that the Rotary wants to help repaint the playground. So I think that speaks a lot to the leadership at Elkhorn, that you're bringing in these community partnerships, and I'm seeing how the board is out in the community. It is important that we can't do it alone, and to have that kind of support from IKEA and Rotary and engineering. UC Davis doctoral engineering student is teaching at Elkhorn or providing environmental science at Elkhorn. So a lot of great partnerships going on in our schools and in our community, which I appreciate. So those were just a couple of highlights that I wanted to hit with some schools that weren't mentioned tonight, with all the other great things that we're doing. And I don't want to forget, we also have superintendent comments, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gilliland. No,
thank you. Real quickly, I'll continue with the Elkhorn theme, and we're excited about what's going on this weekend. In fact, Sunday, November 17th, this is the 51st season of the Camellia Symphony Orchestra that it will be hosted at at Elkhorn. It's been at Riverbank previously. It was a couple years ago. So they quite often frequent our schools, and we're very fortunate to have that partnership. The Burton Law Farm sponsors this. There will be an instrument petting zoo, an arts fun shop at 1 o'clock, and a concert at 2 o'clock in the afternoon this Sunday. So we'll do an all-call to our families to make sure people are aware. It's usually very well attended and a very exciting event, so we're pleased that they're doing that in our schools again. Mrs. Leon had mentioned the library dedication that is in fact scheduled for 3:15 on the 20th. I don't know if the time was mentioned, so I wanted to make sure you knew that. Right after we clear the campus, we'll have the celebration in the library at 3:15. So that's coming up. The only other thing I wanted to say is just, since we're not meeting again in November, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. We have so many things to be thankful for, and it's nice that we have opportunity to kind of take pause and celebrate that with family and friends. So enjoy your time off. Thank you.
Sure, Board Member Cruz.
Yeah, I have the experience to go to the Camellia Symphony, and I kind of just want to make clear, because they do advertise a petting zoo, and many people came to look for animals to pet, and it's an instrumental petting zoo. They get to see instruments, so I just wanted to get that clarification. You go there, you're not going to see animals; it's music instruments.
And they are just a wonderful symphony. I have to put a plug. We at Sacramento City College, where I am employed, we are the home of Camellia Symphony right now, and so we've had some wonderful performances on campus, and they call us their home, and we're really proud of that, and I'm proud that we have that connection with Washington Unified as well. So great reports. If that's all, we'll move into, at this time, we have a board governance discussion. And under board governance, we open up to any upcoming meetings or any structure issues about the way we pull together our agenda, or anything that you would like to discuss tonight? I know that we do have the CSBA meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and I know I'm planning on attending, and I think there's a couple of other members planning on attending. I think that's a really important time to look at governance issues. I'm excited about the agenda. You can never learn enough as a board member. It's like everything else we do in life. It's continuous learning. So is there any other board discussion items that we need to bring forward? And remember, in December is our reorganization meeting. Be thinking about board officers seriously, because, you know, it's nice to refresh every year, and so be thinking about your role in that, and bringing forward some thoughtful nominations. I'm really urging that we focus on that this year and don't just come to the meeting without really giving it a lot of thought, because that helps guide the board for the next year. Oh. Mm-hmm.
I know it's later in the agenda, but I would like to mention this special board meeting in November 19th also, because sometimes people aren't aware.
Okay.
I know it's later in
everybody
the agenda.
have that on their calendar? November 19th on a Saturday.
Tuesday. No, Tuesday.
Oh, it's a Tuesday night. Sorry, we changed from Saturday because we couldn't get us all together. All right.
Good thing it was announced.
Yes. I have it on my calendar. Just don't have it in front of me. Did we get that Tuesday? Yeah. All right. Well, moving on, we have 3 information and discussion items, and the first discussion item is about naming a school. And so we're going to have Dr. Gilliland lead this discussion.
Yes, thank you. I did want to just draw the board's attention to the fact that we are in conversations, as you're aware, with a development firm that's planning to bring a school to our community within the next few years. It's the Liberty Project. We've talked about it pretty extensively. And one of the privileges and responsibilities of a school board is to name that particular school. So I wanted to just, because it's new to many of us, opening a new school, I wanted to just let the board know that we do, in fact, have policy that basically guides that work. And it gives some guidelines in terms of particular names that the board may want to consider, but I think most importantly, it talks about a process of really drawing community involvement, you know, in identifying what might be a suitable name for a new facility. It's a great opportunity, I think, to really kind of leave a mark in terms of what we want to recognize as a district and a community. So wanted to just bring that to your attention. It does recommend a citizen advisory committee. I'd like to come back to the board with recommendations of what I think that composition of the advisory committee could be or should be. And I'm certain the board would want to have some input too in terms of who we'd want to make sure we reach out to have a fair representation. Ultimately, a number of names I think would be generated. We may in fact rank by priority in terms of the committee's work, if you will. But ultimately, it's the board's, you know, responsibility and privilege, again, to make that determination in naming the school. So the work of the advisory committee is simply that, advisory in nature. It's ultimately the board's decision. So we'll begin that process in a little bit. We're not going to jump into that probably before the holidays, but I want you to know we'll come back and give you updates on how we're moving forward. So if there are any questions or discussion about the process, I'd welcome that now.
Any discussion, comments from the board on naming? I know the policy is pretty straightforward and simple. I mean, we can name on behalf of a individual, living or deceased, that's provided major contributions to our community or schools. There also can be naming based on monetary considerations. So I think that we ought to actively put a price tag on that, like we do in many of the other education
$100 million.
And we use in my work, we use 50% of the cost of the project, and so I'm putting that out there publicly right now that we may consider that as a naming opportunity, and maybe we could come up with some of those guidelines. You just never know.
if I put up that money, do I get to
You
live there?
get the name. It's the Minky. That's right. That's right. But there's not really a lot of specific language in our naming policy, but I know a lot of schools in the areas have actual broken down naming rights for stadiums and classrooms and labs, and I hope that we'll think about that for the future, that we really begin to look more philanthropically on how we sort of sell the concept of new buildings, and that there is opportunity out there. There really is opportunity. You have to ASK to GET, is that right, Principal? Yes. So I just wanted to put that out there as we're going to be discussing the policy in the next couple of weeks. Okay, everybody's shaking their head. They like that $1 million, couple $1 million gift, whatever. Okay. All right. Our next information item is our attendance initiatives. And again, I'll turn this over to Dr. Gilliland.
Thank you. I just want to apprise the board of some things we've been doing to improve attendance at our schools and ultimately, I think, affect positive achievement in the classrooms. About 3 years ago, we started an attendance initiative, and we determined that if we could meet certain criteria to improve average daily attendance in our classrooms, that some of the proceeds and the additional revenue should go back to our schools. So we've been monitoring that, and simply by talking to our principals about the importance of having kids in school. And celebrations, I think, that schools do to recognize students' achievement or their attendance that results in achievement, we've seen some pretty remarkable gains and improvements in ADA. So I wanted to share that. Over the last few years, we've moved about 1 percentage point from 94% attendance to over 95% attendance. It's been a continual gain. And the revenue generated has exceeded $500,000 over the 3-year total. Increased revenue based on the average daily attendance. It's strictly that. It's strictly the improvement that we've seen. So I think that certainly in and of itself needs to be celebrated. But it doesn't happen accidentally. It happens because we talk about it and we emphasize the importance of being in school and what's missed when kids aren't here. We've joined in partnership with SIA, which is School Innovations Associates, and they're here this evening to talk a little bit about a program they started a year ago with us. It was October of last year when we started their particular attention to attendance initiative. And that provided software packaging and communication that was very much regulated and consistent from school to school, that was generated based on students' attendance patterns and communication to the family. So they're going to talk a little bit about the gains they've seen this past year. And we'll talk a little bit more as Kara's coming up now. Kara, please. I'll stop eventually. Please. This is Kara de Blasio with SIA, and she's going to talk a little bit about the program. But I did want to say that a couple things I'd like the board to be attentive to. First off, the information regarding what we've done thus far and where we are with our data, but also the idea of expanding this initiative to focus on a couple of key areas. We have identified a K-3 need, if you will, which is typical through most districts and most schools, I think, in terms of the attendance patterns there. That's something we'd like to target additional focus. And also a leadership piece that would help us work with the kids that are kind of marginal between, poor attendance and regular or exceptional attendance. Quite often the kids in the middle, as we know, get overlooked. So they've got some strategies to address that. So I'll be coming back to the board with a recommendation to pursue those initiatives at the next meeting. But I'll turn it over to Kara now. Thanks, Kara.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you for having me here today. We're actually School Innovations and Achievement. And as the superintendent mentioned, your district has been utilizing our attention to attendance service for just part of 12-13, and we're now going into our second full year of attention to attendance with your district. So I'm quickly, again, going to show you some results from just that base service last year from kind of December through the end of school, and then again talk about some ideas we have and some things we're working on with your district and Superintendent Gilliland to enhance the partnership, because we really do feel that it is a partnership with your district. So again, we contracted with your district in October of last year. So we've been working together for just over a year now. And obviously, the idea for implementing a service such as A2A, attention to attendance, is to have that consistent and district-wide process for notifying parents when their students are not in school. A lot of times sites may have a different process for sending out those notifications, a different process for conducting conferences, and the A2A system really helps them keep it consistent and district-wide, and everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's on the same page, if you will. We also have over 1 million students that are utilizing A2A, and that really means we have over about 85 districts throughout California and also throughout the rest of the country that are utilizing A2A as well. And one of the things that we really want to stress is how your district has been able to change the culture here in just 6 months. So from December, when we started generating those notifications for your district, and the end of school, you really did, your staff was really key in changing the culture of attendance and the idea of attendance here at the district, and increasing parental engagement and student involvement. So this is just a quick look at the increase in your parental communication from the year prior to A2A, so 11-12, and that's based off your mandated cost claim, and the nearly 6,000 pieces of parent communication include all of the letters that were mailed, the attendance notifications, both for truancy and excessive excused absences, as well as conferences conducted. So face-to-face conversations with parents regarding their child's attendance. Again, quick administrative things. We've been partnering together, as I said, since October 2012. We printed those attendance notifications every other week for you last year. We actually increased that this year at no extra charge to the district, so we're printing those notifications every week now. So timely, consistent notification to parents when their students are not in school. We also have a record of 157 conferences being conducted, so 157 face-to-face conversations with parents about their child's attendance. We also, again, some quick administrative things. We deliver quite a bit of reports. We pull the data based off of the students that receive letters and the attendance, and we gather these reports for you and give them to the superintendent in Mr. Spalding's office. And one of the most important things about the reports is this chronic absentee report. This is a big, big deal, obviously. Students who miss 10% of the school year or more, so that's 18 days, are considered chronic. And again, as superintendent mentioned, we're going to be working with some students that are on the cusp of being chronic going forward. A lot of trainings conducted, a lot of interventions and service team interactions with our service team, as well as communiques and job aids. Now, this is your suppression rate, and what the suppression rate is the percentage of letters that are actually held back from being mailed to the parent. So it's a conscious choice made by the sites and your outreach consultants. I know that they work really closely together to make those decisions about which letters should and should not reach the parents. And the reason that we have this goal of 4 to 7% of why we want to make sure that there's 4 to 7% of letters suppressed is we do know that there are some circumstances where a letter should not go to a parent. There's a sensitive issue going on at the home, there's a medical condition, so we just have that goal of 4 to 7% because we want to make sure that everyone, the sites, everyone is in the A2A system, its actual software system that your sites are trained on. We want to make sure that they're in that system, utilizing the letter queue, seeing the students that keep popping up. And so this is why we measure that suppression rate for your district. And these are real typical results for a first-year client. And the 7% we're not concerned about. And any of these sites that are at 0%, we have a large service team that's going to contact those sites, just make sure there's no questions about a training issue with the system, and talk to them about the students and the attendance and the letters that are becoming, or the students that are becoming eligible for letters. This is, again, also just a quick conferencing summary. So there were nearly 850 students that were eligible for conferences, and that means they received the second notification of truancy. That's what we call triggers a student to be eligible for a parent conference. And all of those are scheduled and documented within our A2A system as well. And again, these are very typical results. We see about 20% conferences conducted with first-year clients, and all also what is great to look at is that, again, we were only partnering for about 6 months, 5-6 months of the school year last year. So we know that this 35% goal that we have for 13-14 is without a doubt going to be surpassed. Now this is the total absence summary, this pie, and this is showing you kind of what Dr. Gilliland referred to, which is our manageable students. So these 22% of your student population, these 1,500 plus students, are what we consider to be on the tipping point. So we know that there's usually a lot of programs in districts for students that have satisfactory attendance, excellent attendance. There's incentive programs for things like that. And then it's probably, it can probably be assumed that your staff knows exactly who these severely chronic students are and who the chronic students are. Sometimes they're repetitive and they've been had poor absence behavior before. And so these manageable students are on what we call, again, the tipping point. They don't have satisfactory or excellent attendance, but they haven't missed enough school to be considered chronic. And so sometimes those students can get lost because there's just not enough time and resources to focus on them. So what we have going forward, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, is some ways that we can positively message to those students, because again, they just need a little bit of a nudge sometimes. And this is just the breakdown of the manageable students by grade. And it is very typical to see a high number of students in the manageable group in kindergarten. And that's what we really want to talk about, is increasing that positive messaging to parents so we can make sure that all the parents are involved. Everyone understands the importance of being in school, engaged every single day, every week, all year. And this is just a quick peek of the manageable group broken down by site. And again, we do also see quite a few students in the manageable group at the high school levels as well. So we're going to take one quick look at some charts here, and this is another aspect that that the district receives as far as when you are working with us and when we're partnered together, is the data analysis. So when we take a look at these absence trends, what's important to remember is in these percentages, they're broken down by grade. And a student who has missed 3 or more days for unexcused reasons is considered truant, and a student who's missed 7 or more days for excused is considered excessively excused. And that breaks also down by periods for your secondary classes. I know that your high schools are on block schedules, and those are a little bit different, but what's important to remember is that a period missed for someone in a block schedule class, it's more significant than just a 1-hour class for your middle schools. And again, chronically absent students are the students who've been absent for 10% of the school year or more. So this is how the absences broke down last year from the beginning of school until May 16th, which was the last day we pulled attendance for your attendance notifications. And what's important, again, to point out here is 8% of kindergartners have been absent for 10% of the school year or more. So kindergartners have been absent for 18 days or more. 25% of kindergartners missed 7 or more days of school. 23% of kindergartners missed 3 or more days of school for unexcused reasons. And again, we do see, this is very typical in results, is to see high levels of chronic absenteeism in the early grades. And that's simply because we're trying to show that it is important for your students to be in school every single day, again, engaged, learning, and those behaviors are formed, and the attendance behaviors are formed in those early grades. So we want to make sure that we're messaging to those students and getting to them early. Again, part of the partnership that we have is our ability to analyze your data. And one of the things that we know, we just talked about it, is that students don't drop out of high school in high school. They drop out in 1st or 2nd grade. That's when those behaviors are formed. That's when the decisions are kind of being made, whether they know it or not. And so we want to talk about and use these data results to really inform decisions on how we can more actively, positively communicate with families, communicate the message of, attendance is important and being in school every day is important to the whole community. Okay, so Because of all of that data that we're able to analyze, and because of all of the work we've been doing with our 85 school districts and 1 million students, we came up with this idea of the Achievement Initiative, because it's not just about attendance. It's not about, am I marked off in the roll book? It's about my level of achievement and my desire to achieve. And so this is basically the Achievement Initiative. And again, it was designed to be, really based off of the leadership at the district. So all of you, superintendent, it's really a plan and something to go along with your strategic plan. It's a foundational program, and it focuses on creating and reinforcing the culture of achievement that you all have already started and that we've already started to build upon with the A2A service. And again, it's based upon data analysis, and it's really that strategic approach to connecting schools with parents and communities, and it's providing you with that current usable data, because what good is data if we don't do anything about it? What good is data if we're not using it to make actionable and important decisions about student achievement and children's lives? And we know we're an organizational effectiveness company, and we know that in order to create a culture of achievement, it takes all of these things building off the base about enlisting that organization, communicating, supporting the effort, so supporting the message, supporting Superintendent Gilliland and your board's decisions on how to move forward, on enhancing the partnership, measuring the right things, so looking at the right numbers, looking at the right data, and providing you the oversight to make those decisions and to involve parents and communicate more with parents and students. And again, in enlisting the organization, what you're really doing is building on that process. And what we want to do is help support you and help support the leadership in setting the vision, clarifying the mission, determining that common denominator, which for us is going to be showing up. And the reason that we like to talk about showing up and why we're so excited to be working with your district on this, and I know Dr. Gilliland and I have talked about this, is showing up is very, very simple, but yet it's also beautiful in that simplicity. Again, it implies more than just have I been marked off in a roll book. It implies engagement. It implies commitment to being in school on time, every day, every week. And again, what we know is in those early years, in those K-3 years, it's really a decision that is made by the parents, getting them up for school, getting them to school, making sure they're on time, making sure they're engaged, they've done their homework, etc. And so that when they move on to making those decisions themselves and getting up in the morning and feeding themselves, etc., it's already ingrained in them that showing up is crucial. And we also think that that says more about the culture of the district, your community, and it's really the clearest statement of your core values and beliefs. So when you believe it from the top level, everyone understands that. So what we want to talk about is enhancing this partnership again. And these are the two initiatives that we've really talked about with Dr. Gilliland here, the Leadership Initiative and the K-3 Focus. And I believe that you will be discussing these further and also taking a look at them. And if we implement them on December 12th, these are the kind of things that are going to happen immediately. And again, it's really about communicating that message of showing up and starting here, starting right now, from this board, from the superintendent, imparting that message to the community, whether through press releases, press packets, communication to parents. That's how we're going to start and kick that off immediately after December 12th. And again, as far as working with those students on the tipping point, we're going to be doing that with the Leadership Initiative. So we're going to be pulling that data, identifying those students that have missed between 5 and 9.99% of the school year, seeing who those students are, and positively messaging to them with letters, auto dialer capabilities, all of that kind of thing. We'll also be increasing the communication to all kindergarten through third grade parents, regardless of attendance behavior. We'll be sending them positive, colorful, encouraging communication to talk about the value of showing up. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, any questions from the board?
I have a quick one. Just knowing how precious paper is in our schools, do you have the capacity, instead of mailing letters, to do email or text alerts? Or if you do, is there a reason why we do mail the letters?
Well, one of the things that we do know is that, again, we have quite a few different departments within our teams, and one of them is a large marketing department. And one of the things that we do know in that regard is it does take quite a few different times and mediums for folks to hear the message, to get the message. And so we do send everything, you know, attendance notifications, and the majority of the pieces of communication that will be going out will be actual hard mail. We do have the capacity to send texts, and we do have the capacity to send emails. Whether or not that ends up being incorporated in here is definitely something that we can look into. Yeah.
Madam President, if you might. Can you include preschools in this, or do you include the preschools?
They would be included in the K3. We just don't say preschool.
Okay,
but yes,
you
third grade under.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kara, very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the presentation. I just wanted to add one thing I hadn't mentioned before. When we talked about our increased revenue based on improved attendance, I wanted to point out that over $204,000 has gone directly to the schools as a reward. I don't know if I mentioned that. The other piece that I think is very, very compelling with school innovations and achievement, thank you, is the personal touch, because this could be rather clinical when we're talking about data, but what really resonated with me is that when we're talking about the individual kids, and even with that suppression list, to know the students and know their family situations that would warrant suppressing that letter, I think is so imperative. So in our work with our schools, we're really going to be driving home the importance of knowing what's going on and making those decisions, so we're reaching out and really partnering as opposed to simply chasing the data, if you will. The money's important, of course, because we feel that this particular endeavor will pay for itself, if you will. But it's more a matter of making those, you know, connections to our kids and serving our community. So we're pleased with that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And our next information item is a bond program update, number 1, as opposed to number 10.
Number 1, with us now, not from SIA, is Lori Ranieri with Government Financial Strategies. She is accompanied by Stacy Frericks. Did I get it right twice, Stacy? Good. And they're here to give us an update on general obligation bonds and taxes. Lori?
Oh, that needs to be on. I'm going to do a quick overview of general obligation bonds and taxes, talk about the role of a public opinion survey, and then on November 19th, we're going to talk more about the history the district has had with bond measures, our example bond plan, and our next steps for the November election. And I am going to be brief. I've been warned by everyone to be brief, but I have to have a comic in every presentation. So you can see the group of people is sitting around the table, and one person is talking with lots of formulas, so of course I like that. And he's saying, and so in conclusion, and you can see people passing out, and at the bottom it says, to keep meetings from running indefinitely, conference rooms at Zartec Industries were allotted only a 45-minute supply of air. So I'm going to start moving fast and try not to take all the air out of this room. But when we talk about funding for facilities, really there's only 3 places that we can get new funding for facilities. One is from the state, and the state school building program is not really operational right now. There hasn't been a state bond for several years, and they just don't have money to offer us. And when they do have money, we want to be ready in order to be able to match whatever is available. New development, obviously we collect developer fees, and then our local community. And that's where general obligation bonds come in. It is the traditional method of school construction financing since 1879. We've had it in California. And for those of you history buffs, You might say, well, wait a minute, didn't we become a state in 1850? But 1879 was when we had our first constitutional convention. We replaced the original, we got a new one, and it mentioned bonds. So that's why we've had it. Another phrase for it is a full faith and credit bond. The taxation is ad valorem, meaning according to value. Property owners pay, and they pay according to the assessed value of their property, not market value. And if you don't own property, you don't pay. And if you own property and you don't live here and vote here, you still pay. The measure is whether you own property and owe property taxes. We have some constraints on what we do with the bond. We have bonding capacity. For unified districts, our bonding capacity is statutorily 2.5% of our assessed value. So that's just a constraint we have to keep in mind. Another point I like to make is that we have no political discretion. We can't allow somebody not to pay taxes. Everybody who gets a tax bill, if we have a bond measure, they have that little bit of tax added into their bill. And there are two types of measures: the traditional 2/3 voter approval and the newer 55% voter approval. We started saying newer instead of new because it was 2000, and that actually was a long time ago now. But the point is, most school districts do tend to pursue the 55%, but there might be reasons to pursue a 2/3. So I had a discussion with Jonathan about this earlier today. We don't take options off the table until we know they're not the right thing. So even though most people pursue the 55%, we want to keep that alive until we know it doesn't make sense for us. And another interesting thing is at the time that we issue bonds, which could be, we could have an election and we might be selling some bonds that same year, some bonds a few years later. We have to have a reasonable expectation of spending that money quickly for federal tax purposes so we don't have what's called an overissuance. So those are just constraints to keep in mind. Now, here's a little chart that explains the 2/3 versus 55% voter approval. Clearly, the biggest difference is the way that they get approved. One of the interesting things is that the 55% voter approval method, because it had a lower vote threshold, came in with a whole section of the law called accountability measures. And so it does have some additional accountability measures, such as a performance audit and an oversight committee, which the district is familiar with. But what's interesting is it did loosen up some of the other rules. So it's not necessarily the case that a 55% is run more tightly than a 2/3. A 55% actually allows many more types of expenditures than the 2/3 does. So in some ways, the 2/3 is actually more narrow. So those are all details that we will go through as we do our planning. But again, we want to keep all options on the table, and as we learn more, do our analysis, we will take things off the table and hopefully end up with the thing that is the right thing for Washington Unified. And just by way of background, I think the board is well aware, but a bond is a loan. We're used to people saying, my word is my bond, and what they mean is my word is my promise. Well, that's what a loan is. You loan me money, I promise to pay it back. It's a promise, and that's where the word comes from. We have a little diagram. The way it works is if the community approves the bonds, the district as agent for the taxpayers would go out, issue bonds, get that money, spend them on school facilities, and the community would repay those bonds through their property taxes. So there's an agency relationship that's very important, and I just mentioned that because some school districts have had some bad headlines over the last year because they thought about, I think, in my opinion, they thought about the students, but maybe they didn't think about the taxpayers. So right from the get-go, we're always thinking about taxpayers and how taxpayers will be affected by this, as well as wanting to achieve our goals for students. So the math here is pretty simple, and it's basically the bond tax rate is actually a ratio. It's the required tax collection divided by the assessed value of the district. There are some nuances to this calculation, but that's basically what it is. So everybody pays their pro rata share according to assessed value. So one of the things that we want to understand is how different how the demographics of the district mean people will be affected differently. So, for example, you could have two people who live next door to each other, houses built in the exact same year, but one bought their home yesterday and another person bought their home a long time ago. They're going to have different assessed values. So we just like to understand going in, how will people be affected? And finally, we want to have a public opinion survey. You may remember we had one in 2012. And we actually had a very good response in that 56% of respondents thought they would support a 55% voter approval measure, $30 per 100,000. But we decided not to go forward at that time. Things were not as clear, and now we're suggesting that we have another public opinion survey. And so one of the key pieces of this kind of research is that it is independent. It follows the scientific measures for a survey. It will be a telephone survey, and it really needs to tell us, number one, whether a bond measure could be successful at all, of any kind that we could do. Could it be successful? And so when I say of any kind, we don't want to test something that we couldn't legally do, but of the legal options that we have, what are the elements that would make it successful with our electorate? That's what we're looking to find out. Now, sometimes communities find out they can't pass a measure. There's been something gone wrong and people don't feel confident, so they've just got to work on their public communication. However, I do want to share with you that in 2012, almost 90% of the bonds in California, not just by schools, some of them required a 2/3 vote, 90% passed. So it's really important to understand the milieu. In 2010, it was a different environment. There was a governor's race going on. There was just a different political environment. There was a new political movement, the Tea Party. So several parcel tax and bond measures lost. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is the question is, well, why do we need to take a survey? We just had one in 2012, and don't we know our community? Well, a survey is going to tell us what's out there growing in the ground that we don't know yet, and it's done in a scientific way so that we can understand its predictive quality for what we would experience with a measure, as well as what are the strategies that we need in terms of communicating with the public. So mostly what we tend to pay attention to is the maximum tax rate for success and what facilities are priority. But what facilities are priority for the public may not be facilities priority for students. So that's part of what we have to work on in creating the questionnaire, and the board will be involved in creating that questionnaire. So that's it for now. I look forward to seeing you Tuesday, but I am still here, so I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we're excited about pursuing and being involved in the workshop on the bond. I know there are so many needs that we have with our schools. Are there any comments from the board tonight, or are we going to reserve those?
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
I'm just curious if you're aware of the other districts in Yolo County that are going after bonds.
Well, that will absolutely be part of our consideration, and but let me just state why it's part of our consideration. Because sometimes that can be a plus and sometimes it can be a negative. Because sometimes a school district will be very successful in getting pro-school voters to the polls because the total environment is supporting that, right? There's a lot of publicity, but it can go the other way as well. And that's the reason I gave the example of what was happening in our country in 2010 and in our state versus 2012. Very different environments, and that's what the survey is going to help us, and then we will be able to compare that survey with what else is going on. We'll be in communication. So yes, absolutely, it's important, and it's not just important what other school districts are doing, but just in general, what will be on the ballot, what voters are going to come, what they're going to be interested in, what issues come up in the country.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday.
Thank you. See you then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to go into our action items, and our first action item is the Lighthouse Charter Board to grant or deny charter petition. I have a number of public comments. I think I have 13 to be exact, and I'd like to read for public comments. Again, the board has parameters. We may limit the total time for public input on any topic to 20 minutes unless we choose to waive that. It's the will of the board with these 13 public comments tonight to still try to limit it to 20 minutes. So I would just ask the public if that you just be mindful of other people's time, and if you can talk for 1 minute, maybe others would talk for 3. But I think we could maybe limit repetitive comments if you can. I'm just asking that we pay attention to the time limit. I think that's the will of the board tonight. Correct? And so we're going to go ahead and go with the item first. I'd like to present information on it before we go into any kind of comments from the board or the public. So we'll present the item from the superintendent.
Very good. This is on the agenda for action tonight. In fact, on October 10th, the board held a public hearing in accordance with Ed Code requirements to discuss the Lighthouse Charter petition and their intent to establish a school. And this is, in fact, based on Ed Code, the time that the board would take action on whether or not to grant or deny that charter. I provided a couple of documents to the board. You have them with you here this evening. Two documents that I want to specify at this particular point is one, a memo from myself to the board regarding Lighthouse Charter petition review. The second item is a petition review supplemental analysis provided by the business department, Mr. Landsberger and his team, that really focuses on some of the fiscal pieces. So I'm going to hit some of the highlights in terms of where we are currently with process and then draw to a recommendation that I'm making this evening. First off, per Ed Code 47605, the governing board of the school district shall not deny a petition for the establishment of a charter unless it makes written factual findings specific to the particular petition, setting forth facts to support one of the following findings. So it's very stipulated in terms of the expectation that a board would approve unless one of these criteria, any one of the five, falls into issue. The first one being the charter school presents an unsound educational program for the pupils to be enrolled in the charter school. The petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to be successful to implement the program set forth in the petition. Number 3, the petition does not contain the number of signatures required. Number 4, the petition does not contain an affirmation of each of the conditions described. And number 5, the petition does not contain reasonably comprehensive descriptions of all 16 specified elements. So again, those would be the only criteria that the board could consider in making their decision. So extensive review of this particular petition has occurred. We've had a number of staff members involved and also our legal counsel. So the synopsis includes the review of a number of people, as I pointed out. I'll hit just some of the initial findings, and I think I'll touch on some of the elements that I just read to the board as I go through the document. And I won't read the entire thing because you've received it. So pulling out basically the highlights that I see in terms of pertinent points for your consideration. Maybe I'll take a time out here and explain that I did have opportunity to meet with the petitioners recently, and we had some discussions earlier. And quite often, I think, in a petition submission, there is some answers that are just paramount in terms of the nature of narrative. And even in the course of discussion yesterday, there were responses to some of the things that I've shared. And I think that that's quite logical and reasonable that there could be legitimate explanation to many of these findings with further dialogue. And I say that's important because I think when you're trying to capture the essence of 16 elements in a written document, often there are questions that really are simply not, attended to in that narrative. So I do want to say that in terms of the findings, some of that could be resolved and addressed, but there are also some things that I'll highlight later that I think are more pressing and of concern. First off, the Lighthouse petition does not appear to contain a reasonably comprehensive description of the qualifications to be met by school employees. There's quite a bit of detail that outlines the role of the principal at the school, but beyond that, there's very little description. So the attorneys noted that, and also identified specifically that there's talk about maybe bringing in classified employees to do certain services. It wasn't really defined what the qualifications for those folks would be. So the Ed Code stipulation, we feel, is not reasonably addressed, if you will. Another element the attorneys pointed out was staff retirement coverage. There's a requirement in code that indicates that there needs to be a designated individual. Again, it would not be difficult to identify and assign that to one particular individual. But when we're looking at the petition, we're looking strictly at the substance of that particular document in relation to Ed Code, and it's not left to the local educational agency to answer those questions. It needs to be evident in the petition, and we found that lacking. There were also concerns with the educational program. Primarily, one thing I want to point out is that in the actual introduction to the petition, I'll read the quote. The Lighthouse Charter School, the founders of the Lighthouse Charter School are interested in providing students with an exemplary elementary school education, And I think that's important because it does specify elementary. We're familiar with the Delta Elementary Charter School in Clarksburg, and we know that it's vibrant and very successful. My sense is that this particular petition was derived from the work there in Clarksburg, and that while there is attention given to the fact that they want to expand this program to grades 7 and 8, I feel that the attention to program at the secondary level is lacking. So I pointed that out to the petitioners as well. I think that's most of greatest concern, particularly with the first year. As a startup school, any new charter school, you would expect that they would have a smaller enrollment initially, and it would build with time. And I think ultimately their numbers for projection would speak to the vibrancy of a quality program, if you will. But I have great concern about a program that would start with 30 8th graders in the first year. And I feel that those kids have one shot at 8th grade as they transition to 9th grade, so I think that's flawed in the design, if you will. I have concern for the 8th grade. The multitude of teachers that indicated their interest and support for this program are credentialed. They need to be by highly qualified standards of No Child Left Behind. But there's a greater proportion of teachers that hold multiple subject credentials, again, an elementary level credentialing mechanism. I saw no single subjects in the areas of math or science. There were supplemental credentials identified, but it appears that the attention to the secondary program has not yet materialized. Again, that's something that the petitioners could address with time. They're planning to open the school in a year and a half, but as it stands right now, on the basis of the evaluation of the petition, it's, I think, seriously lacking in that regard. The petition clearly states that the charter school cannot, nor does it intend to match the district's current average salary or pay scale. The charter school notes the average teacher salary at $51,800 per year with a $1,000 stipend for a master's. In addition, full-time employees will receive a $5,900 cap for health and welfare benefits. And just for point of context, I guess the district's average teacher salary is approximately $63,500, and the benefit cap for a full family is $10,700.44. So the difference between the base salary on the average teacher is $16,544. We feel that that is significant. We feel that that may be, in fact, problematic for the charter school to draw from the community for highly qualified teachers to serve students of this community in that program based on that difference between average teacher salary compensation. So we feel demonstrably unlikely to be successful to implement the program based on that. There's also concern regarding the governance structure, and I talked to the petitioners about this. It was noted again by the attorneys, based on the petition, it stipulates that there would be no more than 13 voting members on the board of directors for this charter school. And then it goes further to delineate who those representatives can be. And the way it currently stands, it would limit the number of people from the Rivers community or from West Sacramento specifically to 3 of those positions. Now, currently, the composition of the Delta Elementary Charter School Board, or Friends of Delta Charter, excuse me, I'm not getting the name exactly right, I don't believe, but the existing body does, in fact, include voting members from West Sacramento. So I want to point that out. But the stipulation in the petition would not necessarily give that assurance that we would have that type of representation on the board if people who left the board that live in West Sacramento were replaced by other board members. So again, the petition in its own right specifies no more than 13 voting members with no assurance that any more than 3 from West Sacramento would be part of that body. So again, the attorney's finding on that is, while it's reasonably comprehensive in terms of the description of the governance structure, it may in fact be unsound based on that unfair proportionality of representation. Now we're getting into some of the real meat and potatoes, I think, in terms of the problems we see, and a lot of this is based on timing. When the petition was first submitted, it was rather urgent. It was evident to us a few days prior to the deadline that they would need to submit. And in fact, the day it came in was the day it was necessary to be received by the district in order to qualify for some federal funding. So a lot of the plan is contingent upon the funding, and they were in fact successful in securing the funding. Funding, in fact, that wasn't assured or necessarily noted at the time the petition was submitted and when the review was conducted. So I want to disclose that and point out that there is funding available. But that sense of urgency in my mind resulted in, again, that was kind of a driving force that I think precluded any kind of additional detail and maybe some of the problems that we found in our review. That being said, there is an intent to open the school in a year and a half, and at this point we have concerns about the viability of that intent based on just construction and Department of State Architecture and other restrictions that may in fact prohibit the timeliness of that development of the school. So there's some concern with that. And implications from that, the federal funding that's been received already would be diminished if in fact they didn't open on that particular target date. I understand that there would still be money available from that fund, but it would be reduced based on not meeting that initial target. So that gives some concern regarding the overall fiscal picture, if you will, some ramifications that have not been anticipated or are not reflected in the petition. But beyond that, I'll get now into the financial analysis conducted by Scott and his team. And I provided a synopsis that I think captures the essence of the concerns. There's a great deal of additional detail in the analysis that I'm not going to read verbatim. But in the summary that was provided, it's unlikely that the financial and capital improvement plan associated with the Lighthouse Charter School petition would be successful in its implementation. This opinion is the result of an analysis that shows an overestimation of revenues, risk associated with the assumptions of state and federal grants being awarded, risk associated with short-term borrowing, a line of credit, an inadequate facility plan, and an apparent lack of understanding of California Department of Education and DSA protocols. The petitioners have assured me that they're very familiar with these regulations and protocols and maintain that they, in fact, can construct the school and occupy the school in the timeline that they plan. But again, we have concern about that, and I think that's highly suspect at this point. Another point I'd like to make, and I'll wrap this up quickly here, the Lighthouse Charter petition indicates that it intends to replicate and improve upon many of the successful elements of the Delta Elementary Charter School, DECS program. It further states, quote, that DECS has shown significant improvement in student achievement over the past several years. A review of recent scores reveals that the school's academic performance index actually declined by 18 points in 2012-13. There was an increase of 50 points in 2011-12, but that improvement was preceded by a 39-point drop the previous year in 2010-11. So although API is only one measure of student achievement, the claim that the Delta Elementary Charter School has shown significant improvement in student achievement, I think, is suspect. So I offer that simply because I think quite often the claim for petitioners and charter schools in general is to improve the lay of the land, if you will, and bring something of higher quality to the school. I sense through the educational program review that there is nothing really extraordinary or above and beyond what we're doing in our great schools in the district. Not to say that they couldn't be successful and effective in serving the needs of our kids, but again, I do see some elements that are troubling in that regard. In my conversation with the petitioners or the representatives of the group yesterday, I was asked basically to reconsider my recommendation to the board, and I conveyed to them in all sincerity that I would do that. And I feel that based on the number of things that we've pointed out as I've shared with the board, and part of my messaging was to be very deliberate and state that a lot of these things can be remedied, I feel can be clarified and we could work through. But based on the financial piece, the questions we have about the financial plan, and the likelihood of being able to open a school in a year and a half, and even beyond that, the need to possibly extend that and the ramifications of additional financial burden on the charter school, I recommend that we deny the petition at this time. The board, in fact, has three options as I see it. One would be to approve the petition as presented, deny as I've recommended, but also maybe to approve with conditions, and that would be some specific stipulations of expectations of additional information and additional work for both the petitioners and the district to reach agreement on the petition itself. So that's what I have in terms of my overview.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gilliland. I know that you and staff have worked diligently to look at those concerns. Would it be the wish of the board to go with the public comments, and then we can comment after we've heard some of the public comments, which we would like to hear? So I'll do these in order as they were given. Well, I brought your concerns to the board, and it was a consensus on the board that we try to stay within our 20-minute time limit, and still try to listen to all of the speakers, but just condensing some of them if they're repetitive. Still the wish of the board?
Did that answer his question?
Does that answer your question? Jim, why don't you come up and start us off? Jim Lockhart.
President Leland, members of the board, Superintendent Gillian, thank you and good evening for your time. My name is Jim Lockhart. I'm a founder of the Delta Elementary Charter School, the board president, and the lead petitioner for the charter petition before you today. I've lived in West Sacramento since 1991. Members of the board, thank you for your support of the Lighthouse Charter petition. I respectfully request that you make a motion to support our charter unconditionally for the 5-year term. My team will have some comment on the issues with respect to the findings of staff, which we have concerns with to support a legal denial. We disagree with those conditions and those findings. We'll address these findings and clarify these items this evening, given the amount of time that we'd like to have. We received the charter petition, or the results in writing this afternoon, just before lunch. So getting a thorough review of these details has taken a little bit of effort. Given a couple of more days, I think we could have done a much better job, more thorough in the analysis. But the short of it is that the findings we strongly disagree with. The Lighthouse Charter will be based on a successful and proven educational model and our successful financial model. The building team comprises of the founding board members of the Delta Elementary Charter School and the Lighthouse Charter, and it has extensive experience managing complex building projects in the state of California and the western United States. We're confident that we can open on time for the 2015-2016 school year. We have a solid and experienced board of directors, all of whom are committed to the success of each individual child in our school and the communities that we represent. We're committed to the success of the Lighthouse Charter. We respectfully request a motion to approve the charter for the full 5-year term unconditionally, and that you all vote yes. While I would like very much to be authorized by Washington Unified School District, should you deny, we believe that we would be approved by the county. But we're eager to build a positive and lasting relationship with Washington Unified School District. I defer the rest of my time to Lisa Corr. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Lisa Corr.
Yes,
Good
good evening.
Welcome.
Yeah. My name is Lisa Corr. I'm one of the partners at Young, Minnie, and Corr tonight representing the petitioners. I just wanted to go quickly through a legal review of the memo that you received. Now, you know, based upon the education code and your board policy, that the charter must be approved unless this board adopts written factual findings specific to the charter petition in front of you tonight that is supported by specific facts to support one or more of the reasons for denial under the law. I don't believe that you have any facts in this memo that would support a denial. The memo that you have in front of you tonight says that they've given you concerns that they believe appear to support a denial. Appear is not facts to support a basis for denial. And so I wanted to go through each area and explain why I believe the charter exceeds the legal requirements of both the Education Code and District Board Policy 0420.4, which describes the required elements of the charter petition. First, under the employee qualifications section, the Ed Code and your board policy just say, provide us with the qualifications of the employees of the charter school. The regulations that were described in the memo go beyond what is legally required of a charter petition to a district, and yet I still believe they meet that higher amount of detail. They describe the qualifications for the principal, teachers, aides, custodians, secretarial staff as well, and business service staff. And if you look closely at the regulations, it says, give us the qualifications that ensure the health and safety of staff. And if you look at the employee qualification sections of the charter on 62 and 63, it describes fingerprinting, TB testing, background clearance, appropriate licensure, appropriate credentials, all which would certainly ensure the health and safety of students and staff. On the retirement section, the Ed Code and your board policy only asks whether employees will be covered by PERS, STIRS, and Social Security. The requirement about who is going to coordinate that actually comes out of the regulations that apply to state board review of charters. However, even so, if you look on page 98 of the charter, it describes the principal as the lead administrator to supervise HR and payroll administration, and so I do believe that that has been covered in the charter as well. With regard to the middle school curriculum, interestingly, the law never intended these charter petitions to be 100-page plus documents. In fact, my earliest charters were like 15 pages. The state board adopted a model application which recommended a 30-page limit and recommended that you describe the curriculum for one course or one grade level. And so the amount of detail that the memo is suggesting is required with regard to the middle school is just simply exceeds what the law actually requires. And with regard to the signatures of the multi-subject teachers, it ignores the fact that in the middle school and in self-contained classrooms, we can have multiple subject credential teachers. It also ignores the fact that the signatures on the charter petition are those who are meaningfully interested in teaching at the charter school, but not necessarily those who will ultimately end up employed by the charter school. There's a much more rigorous process for that. The memo suggests that the educational program might be unsound, but actually if you look at those same regulations, it defines an unsound educational program that is one that is likely to be physically, psychologically, or educationally harmful to students. If you look at the Delta Elementary Charter School, which this is based upon, we've actually got in the last 5 years 84 points of growth. You can see the legislature making a huge amount of effort in focusing us on long-term growth in pupil achievement. Here, Delta Elementary Charter School has proven that certainly doesn't meet the regulatory definition of an unsound educational program, and thus that is not fact to support a denial of a charter. Also, the pupil outcomes that are listed in the charter are very, very specific as to each subject matter. They also align with our newly adopted state priorities that came with LCFF. On page 49 through 50, we have 15 very specific subject matter outcomes. The governance structure, as your superintendent noted, already has 3 West Sacramento representatives, and the parents of West Sacramento have already proven their representation by choosing this nonprofit to govern this charter school. And also parental representation effectively is described by the 2 additional representatives, the ELAC committee, the school site committee, and the parent-teacher committee as well. And then lastly, I wanted to point out that the dispute resolution provision...
Ms. Kaur, I'm going to give you probably another 30 seconds or so before we pass it to the next person.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We're staying within the 3-minute limit, and so... Did we pick that up?
I only need 30 more seconds.
Okay, great.
Also, the memo says that we don't have an internal dispute resolution proceeding in our charter. That is not required by law at all, not in the Ed Code, not even in the regulations. The law only requires that we describe disputes between the district and the charter school, not internal disputes. Certainly important to have a process, but we don't have to describe it within the charter. I ask that you approve the charter. I don't believe you have the facts tonight to make a lawful denial. I hope that you will take Mr. Lockhart's suggestion that we can reasonably work together and resolve any concerns satisfactorily before the charter school opens. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Peter Stone.
I'm Peter Stone, Chief Business Officer of Delta Elementary Charter School. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board. And my comments are just going to be on four topics. First, the concern about getting the facility up and going. We have, by August 2015, we have building experience on our board and staff in conjunction with construction management firms and have experience obtaining DSA approvals for all the projects in our current facility. Our financial plan phases in classrooms for 8 to 20 classrooms over a 5-year period, and our SB 740 funding reflects that as it's spread over that time. Heather Brown of Kitchell Inc., who's in the audience tonight, is working closely with us to facilitate all elements of the building of the initial phases of the new school. Phase 1 is the site package, including infrastructure, design, submittal, DSA approval, and simultaneously working on Phase 2 and 3 for the building design and to the build and install of those buildings. And this even includes the fact that the DSA procedures are changing as of January 1, 2014. They will have to be reflected in there as well. And so we believe that in a 16 to 18-month time period, we can actually get this school up and running in terms of physical plant. Second, in terms of an agreement with the developer for the school site, Clifton Taylor of Richland Development is here tonight also with us and has worked with us thus far and is committed to having the school and proposed site at Fountain and Lighthouse come together to meet the needs of the community and for this school. And he has indicated that the first step is getting the charter petition approved. The site is already approved for a school as part of the City of West Sacramento's planned development for the area. We have already obtained from the Department of Transportation clearance for the school site, indicating no problem with the nearby CHP airport. We've also received the favorable initial school site evaluation from CDE School Facilities Planning for a K-8 school site. Third, why is the general funding ADA rate $7,108? As the actual figure is unknown, Council indicated that we should go with the amount per ADA for Washington Unified, shown on the Department of Finance website for LCFF funding for 2014 and 15. This yielded very positive revenues over expenditures, fund balance, and cash, which are in the petition. We also ran the financials with Delta Elementary Charter School ADA of about $6,500 and had to have a sort of a revenue floor, and we have ensured that we had positive cash revenue over expenditures and fund balance in that scenario as well. And even with the memo that we got this afternoon, the supplemental information that showed a little bit less, we still had positives in those areas. And finally, the staff supplemental analysis we received around noon expresses many potential concerns or risks that are not based on a fact on which you as the board can make a denial. And as an example, as even Dr. Gillian mentioned earlier, it talked about the $575,000 CDE PCS grant with the application deadline already passed, and we have already been awarded the full amount of that grant pending our charter being approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Next, Heather Brown. Welcome, Heather.
Good evening. Again, my name is Heather Brown. I've lived in West Sacramento for the last 7 years, and I'm a parent of 2 wonderfully beautiful little girls. I am one of the founders for the Lighthouse Charter School, and I have over 15 years of experience in the construction industry. So I absolutely know that we can get a school up and running within 18 months. We have a very strong design oversight committee that includes myself, my husband, Sam, and Rania Haman, Don Clark, and Andy Wallace. So I know with this experience, we can absolutely get going right away. There's various options to get there, pre-approved DSA plans using previous designs, so it's not going to be a problem. So I just hope you take that into consideration when you make your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, Matt Taylor. Good evening, Matt.
All right. So my name is Matt Taylor. I'm a parent at Delta Elementary Charter School. I have 3 kids there. I'm also a West Sacramento resident and a member of the school board, and I'm one of the 3 elected parent representatives on the school board. So at DEX, and so I kind of wanted to come up here as a parent, to talk about how awesome that program is down at DEX and how I love having my kids there, but I primarily wanted to come talk about my day job as I work at the Department of Education, and I'm the administrator of the Evaluation, Research, and Analysis Unit at the Department of Education. So my day job is evaluating school programs. I evaluate middle school programs, high school programs. My office calculates API, program improvement. We do all that stuff all day long. So I spend, my days digging into CalPADS data. And I send my kids to this school because I love what it does. I love the program that they have. And I've been doing value-added analysis of looking at how our students are performing year over year, the students that come to us in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade from other schools, and how they blossom when they come to our program. And I just want to see that continue on and be part of this new program at the Lighthouse. Secondarily, I work with implementation of the API changes, as well as the new local control accountability plan, and we're working on those changes in my day job. So we're intimately involved with how schools are going to be measured and how that success is going to be measured. And as part of the team of the board, I'll be bringing all of that expertise to bear to ensure that the educational program and to address those concerns that Dr. Gillett had that our educational program is unsound. I can assure you that that will not be the case at this school. This program will be accountable. And additionally, we've at Delta Elementary Charter, and we will continue at the Lighthouse to, in this era of lack of CSTs, to adopt the NWEA MAP assessments to ensure that our students are continually assessed and those results are used to drive instructional decisions. And so that is part of our program as it sits now, and it will continue to be part of our program. And lastly, the federal grant that we were awarded that Peter alluded to is $575,000. We received the maximum award on that. The petition that you see before you was essentially the same petition that was sent to the Department of Education, who favorably rated this program as demonstrably successful and therefore awarded us the maximum amount of funding possible under this grant. It's a highly competitive grant program that hundreds of schools apply for every year, and lots are denied, and ours was one of the highest scoring applications. So I urge that you follow Jim Lockhart's recommendation and vote an approval on this school. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Next is Steve Lewis. Is that right? Hello. Oh, there you are. How are
wow.
you?
Well, first of all, I'm Steve Lewis, Superintendent and Principal of Delta Elementary Charter School. What an amazing job you do. You're all smiling, and this is overwhelming. So I'm just going to put my notes over here because there are so many experts behind me and so much experience that I have. All I really want to share with all of you is the desire to partner with your district to provide a very strong educational program for students. Those of you that have toured our school understand that we're a project-based learning school. We adopted project-based learning school 7 years ago. And as a new, very soon to be a Buck Institute or Buck Institute Education consultant for project-based learning, I'm very excited at these opportunities to demonstrate to all of you what we can do in West Sac. The programs that we are trying to implement right now and that we are implementing are truly around relationships, professional development for our staff, and a culture at our school that involves all families. I watched something pretty remarkable with the start of your meeting. You're smiling, you celebrate student success. We are about student success, we're about family success, and right now I want to give up a lot of my time right now to bring up a parent of ours from West Sac, Christy Jordan, to speak a little bit about that program. And I really encourage all of you to please come to Delta Charter, find out what we're about, and again, thank you to the members of the board that have toured our school to find out a little bit more about us. And again, my 15 years as an experienced administrator working with the Department of Education here in California, as well as the departments in Guatemala and Costa Rica. So I'm excited to be a bilingual administrator, excited to serve the community and do great things for kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Christy Jordan. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
You're still smiling.
I am. I'm Christy Jordan. Thank you, Madam President, Board, Superintendent, Homegirl Katie. Hi, how are you? My son is 4th generation Broderick. I know it's West Sacramento, but I live in Broderick, not in a new development, but an old Broderick. And at 3rd grade, I decided to take him out to Delta Charter School because I wanted something different. Gilliland, you said something awesome. You said one shot at 8th grade. I have one shot at K through 12. And it meant so much to me to find a small school environment that was special and have that community feeling that I did not get at the schools that I attended and my mother attended. And I want that in my community, in my neighborhood, for my neighbors, for the kids who live across the street from me. I don't live in Lighthouse. I live on Reuter Drive. I live down the street from the senior center, but I want my neighborhood to have what I'm able to have by driving 15 miles up the Delta. And so I'm hoping that while I can't speak to these dollars and cents, these people do that better. I'm hoping that you understand the passion that comes from the parents, why we make that commitment. And I know that there are lots of people in my community that are looking for alternatives also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is Mr. Hall. Is it Darren? Darren? Is he gone or? He signed this and he's out of town? Oh. Oh, okay. That's okay. No, that's all right. We'll move on, okay? Norma Presidio? Good evening. There's two of you.
There's two of us. There's actually four of us, including my husband and my other son. My husband, he's been raised in this community, and we selected this community to raise our family. And I'm just here to plead with you to approve this charter school. We need options for our children. You made a comment that said that Dex doesn't offer anything that the other schools don't, but I don't feel that's true in the Broderick side of town. So, again, I plead with you that you approve this charter school.
All right, thank you very much. Lisa Page.
One thing I'll add as a parent who's lived in West Sacramento now with my husband and I for 11 years, and have also chosen to raise our family here. And as something I've worked on a lot of issues and causes, and I just want to emphasize to this board too that this is a school that's really going to be open to everyone in West Sacramento. We'll be working very hard to really spread the word and make sure that we open doors, and we really want to serve the broad community that's West Sacramento that we love and have decided to raise our families here. So that's it.
Thank you, Lisa. Sam Hamoud.
Yes. My name is Sam Hamoud. Hello. My wife and I are expecting our first baby, so we're not worried about school right away. But as a design manager for Caltrans for 25 years, I'll drive these groups crazy until they build a school in a year and a half. We'd like to have more options, and we'd like to have a bright future for our kids in West Sacramento, and that's for all West Sacramento kids. And we think this is just an example, a try. Give us a chance. The superintendent suggested that maybe the report was submitted quickly because we needed to secure the grant. I hope you understand that we had that one chance. We need it now. I can proudly say that I voted for all 5 board members. And I can proudly say that I'm an active member of the community, and I feel that you care about us. So if you do, please give us that chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jeb Burton.
I don't want to take up too much time because there's a lot of people who've been much more involved in this project, but I've been in the Rivers and lived there for over almost 7, 8 years now. I drive my kids 25 minutes to school outside of Yolo County, West Sacramento. Those of you that know me know I'm very involved in this community. I sit on the Yolo Planning Commission. I'm involved in the Chamber of Commerce on the board. I'm involved, heck, I was putting up tents to get thank you, the dig-in dinners and everything taken care of for the community there. This community is extremely important to me. But I make a decision to leave my area, to take my kids out of this region, because I want to make sure their education is at the highest point. I moved into this community, I moved into the Rivers, and that's when I became part of West Sacramento. And so as important as this is, I want you to understand that there is a feeling of lacking in that community. And while things were submitted quickly, and I recognize there's some issues, you have some of the most experienced people on this board that are going to fix the situation. And you have a significant amount of backing that will deal with this. And I was, heck, I'm on the Planning Commission. I was there for 6 hours this morning. I understand time limits and I understand issues. But I will say, I would ask you to consider, I understand you're not going to be in a position to just grant this outright, but I'd ask you to consider to work with them and to put some stipulations in place to get this moved forward, because I think if you give this team time, they're going to get all your answers and all your issues taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Miranda Burton. Did I say that right? Please correct me. Is that right? Okay. 20 minutes. Okay. We're right at 20 minutes. I'll give you a minute or so. Okay.
Thank you. Hi.
And then we got everybody in. That's
all
great.
right. So I'm a former teacher in Washington Unified School District. I taught at Westfield for a year and at Westmore Oaks for 5 years, and I'm now over at Sac City. But I just wanted to say that Washington Unified School District has done something very impressive. They've done what they've been tasked to do, which is take kids who are below the proficiency band in ELA and math and bring them to the proficiency band in ELA and math. And that is nothing to sneeze at. That took a lot of work, and I was part of that work, and I'm very proud of that work. But most kids moving is not all kids, and that is no fault of the district. That is just a result of the fact that one size does not fit all. And so we come to you with this petition, and we ask that you support options for our students in West Sacramento, as well as our teachers, because the one size fits all also applies to them. So please keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank everyone for their public comments. And now I'd like to go to the board for comments and discussion. Anybody want to open it up? Board Member Cruz.
First, I want to thank the staff and Scott for the extensive and thorough analysis provided to us to help us come to a decision in this. And I want to thank all of you for your comments. It means a lot to see a community and parents come together and so excited about and active in the kids' education. I just wanted to say, many of you have come up here and told us a little bit about you, and I want to share a little bit about me. I grew up in West Sac. I graduated, I went to Alice Norman, I went to Elkhorn, I went to Golden State, I graduated from River City, and I'd like to say I'm a product from Washington Unified School District, and I think I'm pretty successful. I've attended some programs prior to becoming on the board. I attended PK, which is a Parent Institute for Quality Education. I have participated in the PTAs for the last 3 or 4 years, and I attended many community events as well as school events. And the experiences led me to run for school board, so I can ensure not just my son, my neighbors, and the community like you, that we all have the great education experience that our kids need, because they are our future. And I know many of you have young children, and some of them haven't made it through our Washington Unified School District. And I encourage you to, like the charter school, come and visit our schools also. I encourage all of you to participate in supporting your schools in every way. And I know there are many engineers in your group and many successful parents. And I hope that they use that to further our community and make it the best place for our students and our young ones to grow up. And again, I thank all of you for attending as a community and giving us your insight. And I do hear what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments from the board? Go ahead, Board Member Villegas.
Well, I just want to say thanks for all of you for coming out. Yeah, I did tour the school. Mary and I did attend the meeting at the Rivers. We've met with the parents. And I just want to show of hands, how many of you live in West Sacramento? So this is the West Sacramento contingent. There is a few concerns with this, and I'm really hoping we can work something out. And I know the parents personally, and it breaks my heart to see people cry over their kids' education, because I've been there and I know exactly what you mean. So, and I really think it's really important to offer alternatives to our students, and one size doesn't fit all. I have a question. I don't know if that's appropriate at this time to have Richland come up. Sorry to put you on the spot, but and just talk about the property, because I know you and I had some conversations, and I'm hearing mixed messages about that.
Clifton Taylor, Vice President, Richland Communities. We're the landowner of the Rivers. We're excited about the progress that's been made on the charter. We, would be very proud to have the charter school open in our community. We think it would be, a great attribute. We do not have, a final site agreement or business arrangement between the school. However, we're committed to working with the group to move the project forward should they get approved tonight. And I think, we, respect their desire to move this along, and we think that it's something that could be, real attribute for our project. And we're willing to make commitments to see that happen. I think we're glad that they're working with you, and would like to see them work with the district, because there are challenges with funding and other things that come into play. And we ultimately, from our perspective, believe that by being endorsed by your board and being part of the community, it opens up potentially some win-win avenues that will bring everybody's kind of co-equal objectives together.
Thanks. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Thank you.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez.
Thank you for coming out. I too appreciated my visit out to Delta, and had a nice time there. I have to say that I think all your hearts are in the right place. There's been some great conversations, some good energy, lots of great things. And certainly don't fault what you're doing down in Delta, and was excited to come back and see some things that we could even do, for sure. I wanted to talk, just looking over this proposal, I want you to know that I poured and poured and poured over this. I spent many, many, many hours, as of course did the district separately, and lawyers and others, and really went through it, and I just want you to know that I took a lot of time. One of the key proposals here is, one of the main goals is to reduce the achievement gap, and specifically the socioeconomically disadvantaged. And while I wouldn't expect Delta Charter to have the same population that we might have in the area of Broderick that we're talking about, Riverbank specifically would be the school that I would look at for numbers. When this proposal is using Delta Charter as a model, it's important to know that the numbers are very different. So over the range, and I'll throw out one of the scores I had because it was low, and we talked about maybe there was some misinformation there. But when you look at the Cal Department of Ed's numbers from 2007 to 2013, their number of socioeconomic disadvantage, which is a goal to meet the need of this group, ranges from about 10% to I think it's 30% this year. At Riverbank, it's ranges in that time period from 85% to 95%. So we're talking about a very hard comparison to make, because the percents are so vastly different in terms of the number one goal of the proposal. Also looking at it, I poured over what was going to be the plan, how were they going to bridge the gap in terms of the achievement, and those things that are different in terms of Delta versus what we have here. And I didn't see those specifics or a way that that was going to happen. The interventions that are happening currently at Riverbank are for our second language learners, for our early learners, intermediate learners, below learners. They also have intensive benchmark in the middle, and the challenge gate learners. So there's many different interventions going, and they're able to move them every 6 to 8 weeks across. Now, that's something that you can do in a larger school. Certainly there's benefits to a smaller school, certainly. But in terms of interventions, in terms of bridging that gap, looking at the number one goal, I saw that as a stretch, to be frank, when I went through that. Also, I love that you have 100% of your teachers GLAD trained. We do have GLAD trained teachers as well as Riverbank, not 100%. That would be a great goal to have. And then in terms of stepping back from the proposal and stepping away from it and just really listening, and I've taken a lot of notes on what everyone has said last meeting, over the phone, through many emails and many conversations. And so to address that, which is separate from the proposal. And I felt that there, in those conversations, was some lack of awareness of what's happening right now in the district and what's going on. And so I wanted to speak just quickly to that, because we all hear you and we feel your hearts and know this is important to you. One of the things was needing to have, as working parents, extended kindergarten options. It's hard, I know, when kids are in school just for a little while in kindergarten, how do you get over and get them? Well, Riverbank has an extended day option, and it does end earlier than the proposal here, but it is an extended day option. And then we have an after-school city-sponsored kids zone that many of our kids go to. It's a partnership with our city. It's a great opportunity for them. So we have opportunities there, was one of the concerns I heard. Another was wanting a small learning community, but the proposal was in the K3, according to this, I know DEX is a little different, showed 30 students per grade level in those primary grades, which is higher than the small learning that we would think about. Maybe that was talking about the school overall, not the class size, but the class size was certainly higher. In upper grades, our cap is higher. However, when you call up Riverbank, our numbers are very comparable in terms of the upper grade too. So I just wanted to share that. I love your passion on the arts, and it is a district priority we're working on here. I think you bring in a lot of really strong perspectives. And one thing that would be so wonderful is to have your partnerships in some of the things that are existing already. We are working hard to do VAPA and other things here, and you can be instrumental in that and make a huge difference in what we're doing too. So I wanted to throw that out there to you. I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Board Member Kirby Gonzalez. Are there any other comments from the board? I love my board. I really want to say I really thank you for taking the time this week. I thank you for giving me your perspective. I was waiting for that perspective. I've really had an opportunity to visit the school, and I want to echo what the board members have said about the passion and the excitement at the school site and the engagement with families and just the passion of your leader. And but I think my fellow board members have brought up some really good points, and I really want to listen to what they have to say. And certainly, Board Member Kirby Gonzalez, looking at the educational plan, it was something that was sort of highlighted with me, but I really appreciate your in-depth look at that. And I do feel that, slighted in the respect that, you have such a passion as parents and as educators and administrators and engineers for your kids and for this school. But I feel slighted in that, we do have so many great things happening in our schools. And if I felt this school was giving our students truly another choice, another option, it might feel better to me. Do I think there are issues that you could work through? Probably. But as a school board, again, I think Board Member Cruz brought up the fact that, you were born and raised and educated in West Sacramento, and things aren't the same as they were even when you came through the schools. Things have changed drastically, and yet you can appreciate the background and the foundation that you got. I know I'm going to call for the action and for the vote in a minute, but I did want you to know that I listened to hearts tonight. I do think we have a responsibility for all the kids in our community. I didn't hear firm commitments financially or development from a development perspective, and I do feel that we really want to serve all the kids in West Sacramento in the best way possible. And your involvement in that process with your own children can do nothing but help the district. But at the same time, I'm hoping that you would give the district another look. And so those are just some of my thoughts. I echo, again, the thoughts of Board Member Villegas. It was an exciting visit to go out and to really to witness the magnetism of the school. Loved the arts and music program. Just so many good things that were going on in that place. But I didn't see anything that I didn't think we had here in the district that you could find if you really look for it. And so with that, I'm going to call this is an action item. If there aren't any other comments, I'm going to call for the motion and a vote.
I'd actually like to make the motion, and I actually don't want to see this program die. I think DEX is a great example, and I think that we'd be lucky to get something like that here. I do think that there's some issues that we need to work out with the district, so it would be a conditional, there would be approved with conditions, but that would be my recommendation, and I hope I can get some board support with that, because I think these folks have worked really hard. They've got a federal grant. They've got some of the best people working, and they've proven that with the DEX charter school. So, I'd like to see more West Sacramento people on the board and an audit of the Delta charter financials possibly. These people vote in West Sac, and I just think that they deserve a right to be heard, and I'd like to support that. So I'd like to approve with conditions.
Okay, so this would be a motion to approve the charter petition with conditions.
To work with the district on the issues. The application did seem a bit rushed, and to work with those little things that we could work out.
Okay, I'll accept that motion. Is there a second? I can second the motion, and I'm going to go ahead and second it because I do believe there could be things that could be worked out and that we could flush out as is. So I appreciate the motion. I'll take the call for the vote.
What conditions are there before we?
Well, it would just be the conditions that we put forward to deny that we would have a chance for them to answer those, and I guess we would have an opportunity to come back with more detail and maybe a timeline. We would set the conditions. I'm asking you, Superintendent.
I'm processing the recommendation. I think the conditions are pretty well stipulated in the facts, the findings. We have differing legal opinions, so I think we need to confer with our legal counsel as well to stipulate exactly what those criteria would be. I don't want to speak to that right now, but we've talked in general terms about the petition. I've indicated that there is certainly some room for movement, but I've also identified some key concerns. So in terms of the fiscal piece, just right off the cuff, I'd say that we're going to need to see maybe an amended fiscal plan that would identify a sustainability of this program in the event that they're not able to open the school as planned with that target date, because that has fiscal implications. The fiscal piece, again, is a big concern. In terms of the conditions, I just want to say that there's been a lot of effort that's gone into this review thus far, and I think that it becomes incumbent upon the petitioners to address those elements, and it's not going to be additional work. Of course, there will be additional work for staff just to continue with the dialogue and all, but it really becomes incumbent upon the group to address the concerns that are presented to the satisfaction of, I think, to the board ultimately. In terms of a timeline, with the holidays and all, I think that we need to allow ample time for the petitioners to address to reasonable comprehensiveness, the elements that were identified. and bring it back to the board at a later date. But again, I think all of that would need to be discussed before we come back for a vote to make sure that those conditions are clearly articulated and understood by both parties, and that the board is comfortable with those conditions. So it's going to be a work in progress. And I think the board needs to recognize that based on this work and what's already gone in, other things will need to come off the table. There's no way that we can continue this process indefinitely. So I'm looking for, a finite window of time, if you will, early in the new year, but to rush that and do that before the holidays is probably unrealistic. So,
but these people are crazy. They can do fast things.
I don't doubt their capacity and their compassion to do that, but we have 7,400 students in this district right now that need our attention too. So, with all due respect to that comment, we have business to tend to. And I wish this group well, of course, but at the same time, we're looking out for our community at large, and we'll cooperate any way the board so directs. But at the same time, there will be some sacrifice and other things that simply will not get done.
So I guess I need clarification on what your conditions would be and what time frame in which you'd want them to be met.
My conditions? So I actually think that Dayton brought up some really good concerns, and that those be addressed, and that we can do, address his concerns and make sure that we can come to some compromise that will work for both parties.
So you're saying that all the conditions in his memo would be addressed and corrected and fixed by 2-3 months?
I think it could be sooner than that, don't you think? What date are we talking about? First of the year?
Say February 1st?
February 1st? January 1st?
And will these be brought back to the board for?
Then it would be brought back to the board.
To make sure they met those conditions?
Just make sure they met
the conditions.
If I may, I actually suggested that maybe we have some discussion, in the middle of that process to make sure that the conditions are clearly articulated and understood by the board before we progress for a vote as to whether or not they met the conditions. Because when I talk about a synopsis of a review, there's a great deal of additional information that's not included. We tried to capture the essence of the review, so I don't want to be, I don't want the petitioners to feel that everything is reflected in the synopsis that you've received. The facts of finding would be different, based on this information. There's not anything, there won't be any surprises necessarily, but it's going to require some deliberation and discussion to flesh out exactly what those conditions would be.
Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those that approve of the charter based dependent on conditions, say aye.
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 All those that disapprove? No?
No.
No. Okay, so we'll bring it back. We'll have some discussion with the petitioners, but we'll bring back the actual conditions. I think it needs to be tight. I think it also does, I want to say, I hear the superintendent, we need to limit just exactly how much staff time and going back and forth that we can do on this. And we bring it back one more time, and then we make the decision and move forward. We don't want to leave the community hanging either. You need to know one way or another, but I think this gives us another window of opportunity to work with you. Does that sound okay with you with that? And then set some parameters for staff that you're not. Is that okay? We will take something off the table.
We will. Christmas.
Okay. Now we can go on. We still have quite a bit of our meeting left. Yes. Yes.
No. Yeah, it is.
We can't keep pushing this.
Are we taking a break? What's that? I didn't hear you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and resume the board meeting. Action item number 2, approve the 2013-2014 comprehensive school site safety plans.
Good evening, President Leland, members of the board, Dr. Gilliland. I will make this brief. We basically, every November, we bring forward the comprehensive school safety plans to the board for approval. It is also part of the governance calendar that has been established in terms of institutional indicators and student performance indicators. This should be up. You've seen this in your packet. Basically, it is very comprehensive, and it deals with a variety of things. You'll see that it talks about the mission statement. It is approved by school site council members. It's walked through the school site council. It deals with virtually everything that has to do with student safety, crime assessment, safe egress, child abuse information, suspension, expulsion policies, sexual harassment policies, etc. The newest part of this of the school safety plan is the AB9 requirement for bullying policy, and you'll see that in these there's an anti-bullying process, a set of policies, timelines for how they're reported and how they're investigated, and that has all been added in. We've had some excellent support. Some of you know Gretchen Mounier, who was with us prior to Lisa Gillen. She was the Lisa Gillen before there was Lisa Gillen, and she has stepped in to support us on a temporary basis. And she has also been a major part of development of these plans, but these are done by the schools. The other thing I wanted to point it out, and a lot of this work is done through our risk manager, Janet Hunsinger, is that part of these plans includes a crisis management plan. We've had over the years a number of efforts for crisis management. There are crisis management boxes, and we have some survival kits and various things that we've done. We replenish those every year. We make sure that those are updated, and we make sure that the identification of staff in crisis situations is updated. We also do that, Janet's office, for the school district, and we recently had the Great American Shakeout where we actually practiced some of these. I've been on a number of campuses where we've practiced other kinds of disaster drills. So this is a fairly typical thing that we bring forward, and I think you'll find these are quite comprehensive. They're over here on for anyone who wants to look at them on the counter. And finally, the last piece of this is our suspension and expulsion data. This is going to be very similar to what you saw, I believe it was last June when we talked about suspension and expulsion and the best data last June, and this is what we've reported to the state through our CBEDS process. This is also on the governance calendar that we bring you quarterly information. You'll be seeing that from a new Director of Student and Family Services when that time comes. But basically, it's all here, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the board?
I just had one question. Bright School, do we have a safety plan for Bright, even though there's no students there, but there
I don't believe we do, no. When we are fully up and running, I know we would, but I don't believe they're included at this point.
We talked about that. And
if I may, and I didn't have a chance to follow up on that today, but we did have a conversation, and we feel that there's a need, for the folks that are at that site to have emergency plans, so we'll go ahead and do that. We don't have the same criteria and stipulations, so it hasn't been done yet, but we'll get on that.
Be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? I just had a comment on the suspension differences, and maybe this isn't the time, it's kind of in the nitty-gritty, but it's shocking that the change in suspensions at Westmore Oaks. I just wondered what that was about.
We did. We identified that, and I think that was one of the items that came forward, and it was a while ago, it was last summer. It was something we were concerned about, and we had followed all year. One of the things that we do, I think the board is aware of, is we meet with the school. We meet with the school administration 4 to 5 times a year as a team, and that's something that we were tracking through the year. I know that they've taken some steps, particularly around bullying. They've done a lot of anti-bullying work over the summer. I just had an opportunity to meet with Ben Kingsbury, the vice principal, last week to talk more through this process, and we have one of those LAS meetings coming up. But we do track it, and we are concerned. And we've looked at, through our Swiss data, kind of what the specifics are around that. And we see some good trends when we see them being able to, to get down some of the numbers and things like things like defiance and those other kinds of things. But we do remain concerned, and I think we've also made some adjustments as well to the school site staffing in terms of additional yard duty supervisors and whatnot. So we're very attentive to that and responsive.
Okay, thank you.
And it was my understanding that the setup of the school is just a difficult one to manage as well. Is that right? Because it's not set up like the other elementary schools, so it's a little tougher to deal with the structure.
It's definitely, it's very much spaced out, was originally constructed as a high school, and so it does have some challenges, for sure.
Glad to hear you added more staff.
And that you're tracking it. That's great. Any other questions on this item? It's an action item. I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item, approved participation in the federal and state surplus property program. Turn this over to Dr. Gilliland.
This is it's a triennial review or approval, basically. We have an agreement that would allow us to access surplus property from federal and state government. The main benefactor of this operation would be Computers for Kids, because they receive a lot of computers for repair and distribution to our kids. So it's something we recommend support to continue.
Any comments from the board? I think that's great that you
that's awesome.
carved that out.
I think this is a great program.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Any other comments? If not, this action item.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That is passed. And next we have a resolution. It's Resolution 1314-09. It's assignment of teachers by committee on assignments under Education Code Section 44258.7 C and D.
Yes, it is. Excuse me. This allows for a full-time teacher with special skills and preparation outside of his or her credential area authorization to be assigned to teach in an elective area. I believe this is a video program at the site at the high school. Is that correct?
It is.
Dr. Gillespie? So quite often in a tough-to-fill assignment, if you will, for a special program, we will request that the board authorize this particular approval to offer that course.
Is it just for, do we have a list of courses that this could be affected by, or is it just one course that we're talking about?
It's just one course. It's journalism at the high school. It's an elective. We've offered it, I think, for about the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't blanket a number of different courses. Are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is a resolution. I'll be a roll call vote. Board Member Minke?
Aye.
Board Member Cruz?
Aye.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez?
Aye.
Board Member Villegas?
Aye.
And I too vote aye. And the next item is one that we've been working on for quite some time. This is to adopt Board Resolution 1314-10, establishing apprenticeship graduation and local hire requirements for hiring on school construction projects. And I do have a blue slip on this item, and so I'll go ahead and take public comments before the board comments. Dennis Dean. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. President Leland, Superintendent Board members, I just want to speak to you briefly. I realize we're late in the evening, but I commend you and ask you to adopt this resolution. This resolution is taking the high road and providing opportunity, which is what you're all about. Everyone in this room tonight, there's not many of us left, but they're all here for that exact same thing. And if we look back on our own lives, I know if I look back on mine, I've been given opportunity all my life. No one's ever asked to take that opportunity away. You're adding opportunity to for your students in many, many regards. The opportunity for your community and the hiring practices, and there's nothing but good that can come out of it. I mean, I don't see any downside to it. I would encourage you to adopt it, and I would thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board?
Just really brief, like Mr. Dean just said. I appreciate this board, and I think I've worked hard and long for this this type of thing to be brought to the board and passed. I work with the trades all the time on my daily work. I think it's a great thing, and I see apprentices all the time that work out there, and they're learning a trade, and they learn a trade and move to a point where they can make a great wage and doing something long-term in their lives that make them a good living and make them very productive members of our society. So I do support this wholeheartedly because I see the advantage of some of the children that don't go off to college. Not all kids go to college, but these apprentices have to go to school. They have to have requirements that they have to do for algebra. So it is a very great thing for them to do, and it's another opportunity or an alternative other than college that they can go through a program that does teach them school and does have requirements. I know my friend growing up, Ryan Anderson, he went to an electrician apprentice, and every Thursday night he was at school and doing his thing. So, but now he's an apprentice and he actually owns his own company as an electrician. So he does a really, really great thing. So I totally support this.
Thank you, Board Member Benke. Are there other comments? Board Member Kirby-Gonzalez.
I just like to echo that. We want our kids to get jobs where I would have said healthcare, but now we're in a different place. But retirement, they step in, they get retirement, they start to plan for their future. And I just think that that's the best gift that we could give. It's a great model, and I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Board Member Villegas.
I am just so excited about this. Mary and I had a great tour of Lincoln High School, and Brian is a childhood friend of mine, and it's just really nice to see this here, and we support it, and we're glad that we could develop this partnership, and I think it is a great thing. I was the only girl in woodshop, and I think that more people, we don't have woodshop here except for NCCT, so I think we need more opportunities for our students, and this is awesome. So thanks.
I do want to add about Lincoln Heights. I've been invited many, many times to go there.
Oh, you have to go.
I work blocks away.
You've got to walk over there.
Oh, you have got to go.
I'm building bridges all over that region, and I've actually ran into that school because I was lost at one point. But I saw the school, so I can say I've been there.
You got to get the tour.
You will love it.
You especially would really like it.
Right.
The way they have put the resources into the construction focus. I mean, if my grandson lived closer, that's where he would go. Right. My son, like you, was a civil engineer, and if he had had that AutoCAD in high school and not had to struggle, I think he would have finished his professional licensing a lot earlier. And so I would love to hear your take on it, especially I think this resolution fits so well with our career tech path, and that high school needs to be our model. I think we can even do it bigger and better than them. But they've set somewhat
$8 million.
at the bar.
Indulge me just a minute. That's probably the best model there is.
Yeah.
I think our apprenticeships are fine programs, but from a high school education perspective, and talking just as Adam did about the career. We're not talking about a job. I've been doing this 35 years. I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this 35 years. And that Lincoln High School model does some things that I've been trying to talk. I've talked to Adam about it in the past. I've talked to electeds about it for a long time. And it's better than I ever envisioned because it teaches the math skills, the writing skills, the reading skills, the hands-on skills. And there's probably more opportunity in the construction industry right now than any time since I started back in the late 70s, because my generation's going away. And I was a project superintendent for a nationwide general contractor. I've had lots of opportunity to provide for my family, but that opportunity is available to young people right this minute. And if you can provide, this is a first step. This with NCCT is a first step, but that Lincoln High School model is the best there is.
If you can look at the weather, and if it's a rain day, I would be more than happy to go there.
Okay.
They don't work in the rain.
Rain's coming.
But I'll have about 10 engineers with me that will all probably go and have fun.
It's special.
Run by a state teacher of the year, I think, too.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's amazing. Are there any other comments by the board? I think we're all really excited about this resolution and glad you were able to join us. I do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Great.
Second.
Second. Okay, it is a resolution, so I'll do a roll call vote, and I'll ask Board Member Minke again first.
Aye.
Board Member Cruz.
Aye.
Board Member Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Villegas.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. That's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for being here. That felt good. I just had a visit with a relative down in Los Angeles in his 80s, and he is a multi-million-dollar. He has a multi-million-dollar company, construction, doing high rises. His father built the Beverly Hills Post Office and Santa Barbara Post Office. And he was talking to me about apprenticeships and said, well, you know, they're just not around anymore. And I was just so happy to be able to tell him, oh, yes, they are. And they're coming back. And it was just so much fun talking to him because that's how he got started way back then, was through apprenticeship and
raising millionaires.
Really, you know, become a multimillionaire. So that's the takeaway from tonight. And then we can name our school after him.
Yeah, when he donates.
They can donate money. All right, next on our agenda is our consent items.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to pull item 7 from the consent.
All right, so we'll go ahead and take that as an action item. We'll pull it up, and then we'll go
There
back.
needs to be a second. I'll
I do
second the
need a
motion.
second, sorry.
And a vote.
Okay, all those in favor of taking out item 7?
Aye.
Say
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, 1 no. I vote aye. So we'll go ahead and bring it up as an action item, and we're open for discussion.
Okay. All right. I'll take the charge. I had a concern when I looked at this with our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Learning. That would be of a vital role, as we know, moving forward. We're going to be looking at a brand new adoption soon with Common Core. We're looking at possibly new roles for our TOSAs. We're looking at a lot of money coming from the state for professional development, a lot of other things. So my concern is that the person in this position, or recommended for the position, has some really glowing reviews, certainly has done a lot in leadership. I can see clearly that there's a leadership background there. My concern would be that there's not a background in curriculum of instruction or curriculum and instruction or professional learning. With that concern, not only does this person not have education that would specialize in curriculum and instruction, but also this person has never been a teacher. And I think that it's very, very vital that we have somebody who has an education background in this role. Certainly good leadership skills are important. Certainly the person we're looking at has some great things to offer. But where my concern also comes from is this individual was not asked the interview questions for curriculum and instruction. They did a separate interview for the preliminary, and so they did not meet with the first group, which was a recommendation from staff, from parent, and from others in our district who sat in on that committee. So my recommendation would be to reopen this position, encourage this person to reapply, and be asked the curriculum and instruction and questions as the other candidates were asked. They were only asked, this person was only asked the student and family support questions.
And can you tell me how you got that information on what questions they were asked? This seems kind of detailed to me.
It's definitely detailed. I agree. So I looked up the background. I saw the person's background. It wouldn't have come to me naturally, but it did. Somebody in the community voiced some concerns, and simply right when I did that, I didn't see any experience with curriculum and instruction at all. And I feel an obligation. That's my background. That's my specialty, and I feel that's part of why I was elected. And so I felt an obligation to bring it to the board here. This is a huge, very, very vital position with where we are right now. In terms of, we need somebody that can analyze curriculum. We need somebody who knows what great teaching looks like. And you can't have somebody do that if they've never taught and if they don't have an education in curriculum. There's a master's degree out there in education and curriculum. There's doctorate degrees in there. Maybe we don't find somebody with a specialized education in it, but they have to have, in my opinion, something. So at the very least, if they don't, they have to be asked the questions. So the interview process, which I found out, or maybe Dr. Gilliam would like to talk about, was where I was concerned when I then found that out, that the committee did not make a recommendation based on asking the questions of curriculum and instruction.
Because I know in the letters of recommendation, it spoke to this person as a leader in curriculum and instruction. So that was confusing to me.
Sorry, if I can add, I understand kind of where Ms. Kirby Gonzalez is coming from. I don't even know, and this is something that I was concerned with. I don't even know personally whether they would have made the cut if she was then interviewed, or if she applied and then interviewed in the panel looking to place her in the position that she now is being brought forth for. So I would want her to go through the same process everybody else went through. If she gets recommended and goes through that process to staff and gets brought back forth, great. If not, I just don't know if she would have been in those group of people at all if she had applied for the position she's up for. So I think it only fair to the other candidates in that position to have a fair shake and to find out, those other two candidates coming through that process that we instilled would have still made it through and the other candidate would not. So I think it's only fair to the other candidates to redo it or bring back another candidate that was brought forth.
Are there any other comments from board members? I just feel like this borders on micromanaging. I really do. I feel really strongly about it. I haven't really looked at it. I haven't done the background. It was on consent agenda. I read some of the recommendations for this person, but is there something in our policy, in our interview process, that was not followed?
Well, I think she's being brought forth for.
Is that the issue?
She's not. I don't feel the process was followed. I think we put a job out there. They apply, they interview for it, they go through a panel, and then 2 recommendations come out for that position. It just so happened that 2 positions were up, 4 people came out, and the person that we're talking about came out of another pool for a different position, and then got it doesn't make sense to me. I think the process is what's not been followed here, and I think that if she applied for both or she applied for one or the other, I think this would be different. I think that the buck stops here, and I feel that the process needs to be followed, and doesn't mean that she wouldn't get it or anybody wouldn't get it. I think it has to be done fairly for all candidates. I mean, I would hate to be the person that was recommended and didn't even get the job, and neither did the other person. I would feel that would be a little unfair to me and to anybody else in that position. So just out of fairness, I think it should be done position by position. And that's the process that we put forth, and that's not what was followed.
I'd just like to offer some clarification, and I think the board's concerns are certainly warranted in light of the circumstances involving the situation we were faced. We had opportunity to seek candidates for 2 positions simultaneously, directors in ed services, both student services and curriculum and instruction. And through our process, we in fact did adhere to the process, and I'll stand firmly behind that. We didn't violate process per se, but we did take some latitude because in the second round of interviews, we had the opportunity to see all finalists for both positions in the same day. Through the panel process, the committees ranked candidates and sent those candidates forward for a second interview, and we interviewed all those candidates that were presented. And at the end of the intent going into the second round of interviews with Cabinet and myself, we fully intended to adhere to the recommendations based on the specific job titles. At the end of the day, in fact, we did it in the same day, it was all fresh in our minds, and we had considerable deliberation about the best candidates for the positions. And there is some overlap in terms of people's experience and their responsibilities currently at their sites. This particular candidate kind of rose above in terms of the curriculum and instruction strength that she demonstrated in the conversation. It is true that in the first round of interviews, the questions were more specific to the role, be it student services or curriculum and instruction, but it was more of a free-for-all, if you will, in terms of the conversations we had at that second round. And it was pretty evident to us and also to those that, if you noted the recommendations and endorsements that came to you today, there's certainly strength evidenced in curriculum instruction for this particular candidate. Our charge and my feeling was that I wanted to get the best people possible in these roles, and although this is an unusual circumstance that allowed us to do that, I feel firmly committed to the two people that we're bringing forward to you. I think it's unfortunate if, in fact, the board can't see their way through that, the fact that this is a different type of circumstance. The risk, I think, that we face is losing this outstanding candidate based on, another hurdle, or if you will, and a message certainly that maybe, we want you here, but there's problems with process. So I feel firmly that it is my responsibility and duty to select the best people I can to do the work of this district, to meet the goals and objectives of this board, and I'm bringing to you that commitment based on this action that we've taken. Again, understanding the concerns about policy or the policy for selection. Granted, it's different than what we typically do, but I think the outcome is to our benefit, and it would be a mistake to not take action to support the recommendation.
Well, I do know at the college even, especially at second level interview, it changes and fluctuates depending on candidates and what the position is. So, and that purview is given to the president and the cabinet. So, again, if there's no other discussion, we brought this up to action, so we're going to have to vote on it individually. So I'll need a motion.
I move that we take the recommendation of superintendent and hire this woman. If he feels she's the best person for the job, that's what we hire him for. So
well, then we could either do that or have no motion and just put it back down on consent.
It was already brought up and discussed. It has to be voted in action. But the if there's only one position at debate, can we pull that position and then vote on the rest as a whole? Because I know there's a slew of people in that in that thing. So
2, 3, 2.
No, but are we talking about all three? Are we talking about one? No, nobody knows.
Well, right now we have a motion on the floor to take recommendations of the superintendent. Do I have a second? So that motion dies. So again, I need a motion. If we have this out as an action, I'm going to need a motion for what to do with item 7, approve certificate. The motion should be whether or not we're going to approve the certificated human resources recommendation.
Well, if we don't have another motion to do anything, then we just have to move on. It basically died.
And it dies, and what happens? Nobody
doesn't
gets
get
hired.
approved.
Nobody gets hired. We have to go out again. It's I feel like a big mistake.
So can I make a motion to ask her the interview questions that she didn't get asked and move on from there?
Well,
Is that the issue that you're having?
I have a question for Ms. Kirby Gonzalez. Or for the entire board. Are we only talking about one position? Or are we talking all the? How many positions are on this?
Three.
Three. Are we talking about all three positions, or are we just talking about? I believe we're just talking about the one. So let's separate them. I make a motion to separate these items. I'll make them. I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation for Director of Student and Family Support Services and music.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 What do you want to have happen?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Recommendations or directions you want to give to staff of what you want to see as follow-up, or you just want this person, this highly qualified person, obviously, just to go away? Is there some direction?
We talked about, I brought up the option of going back and asking this person the curriculum questions with the initial panel, having them be able to do that. But I think that was not the recommendation of Dr. Gillian. And from my conversation, maybe you can clarify it, sounded like a better option from district standpoint might be to reopen it, invite this person back to apply, and go through the process asking the questions.
That was exactly our conversation, Ms. Kirby Gonzalez. I feel that, in fact, if we now, after our recommendation has been to the board, go back with additional questions for one candidate, that would be a blatant violation of policy and would not be fair to that candidate. So I think the only option before you would be to simply go out again and start the process over. That's my feeling.
I think there's two options. The option would be to reopen it and start over, or look at the two candidates that were brought forth and pick one of those. There is two options.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mecki, who would look at the two candidates that were brought forward?
Well,
I didn't understand.
It went through an interview process, right? And two candidates were brought forward for that position?
Two or three, I don't recall. There were two for one and three for the other, two for that position. Two finalists, that's right.
Reopen it.
That's right. Thank you. Is that clear?
No direction?
It's not legal to ask her the questions that we didn't ask her at the first. Is that just?
That would just be
open us to
travesty. That would make us look so.
Well, I'd be, I guess in response to that, I'm not sure exactly what the proper response would be to the question. And coming back with a recommendation of endorsement for the same candidate, I don't know, unless we maybe have board members involved in the panel and the process for selection of employees. I'm not sure exactly how that works, to tell you the truth. I think other than simply going back out, reopening it, and going through a process once again that will maybe perhaps be challenged later, we'll continue to do what we think is right in bringing positions forward.
I know this is unique. I simply want to, I feel I have an obligation to honor the first panel of teachers, the parent, other staff who should have a voice in asking the questions and being part of the process. Since we say they're part of the process, I think they should know what job and role they're looking at. They're very different jobs, and I would not do this if I didn't think it was vital. this is a vital, vital position that we ask these questions. This person and that first panel haven't had the chance to do so. I would not step in or need to be on a panel.
I feel compelled to continue the conversation because I'm going to need clarification from the board on where we'll draw the line. I feel that all of our positions are vital, and we follow processes that allow me to bring forward to you recommendations. So I don't want to necessarily give distinction to one position over another, recognizing that this position is critically important in terms of Common Core and the very things you presented, Ms. Kirby-Gonzalez. But if we're going to establish different protocols and different procedures based on the interpretation of the board's vitality of that particular role, I'm going to need clear definition of your expectations.
Ask the person the job they apply for.
Madam President, can we move on to consent items?
I don't get it. I don't get it. So I think we need to reopen this position, ask people to apply again, and go through the process that has gone through with every other employee that you're talking about, where there's a panel and they're asked questions, and then it goes on and you make the ultimate decision with your cabinet.
And that is, I understand, to be the direction of this board. I want to sense that that is, in fact, the marching orders I'm receiving from this entire board. Because that, to me, sounds like the action I just took to come to this point. So do what we've done the way we did it and bring a recommendation back to the board is what I understand. With, I guess, the caveat, maybe the distinction would be, Ms. Kirby-Gonzalez, that you're saying give the questions for that particular position to the applicants.
Have your first group of people ask the questions for curriculum instruction, if that's the position you're looking for. Have the candidate answer questions on curriculum and instruction. And the first panel we have an obligation, I feel, to them, if they feel like they're part of the process in hiring, to ask the appropriate questions to the appropriate candidate. And then you have, of course, with your staff, the ultimate say on that.
Okay, for the sake of clarity, so the board's fully aware of the process, in the first level of interviews, that panel makes recommendations for a second interview. That panel is informed that the superintendent will make the final decision on the recommendation I'm bringing forward. So it is certainly within my prerogative to make that recommendation to the board. I'll continue to do that. In a circumstance where, in fact, I see 5 applicants for 2 positions any given day, I will consider the best applicants for the position. And if, in fact, there's opportunity to consider maybe bigger picture and look beyond the parameters of that first level of interview, I may, in fact, bring the same recommendation and face the same kind of scrutiny and challenge to that recommendation. But I stand firmly behind the recommendation. I feel the recommendation was the right one for this district, and I think I've probably said enough, maybe more than enough.
I don't think you've said enough. I think that we need to be very careful about the level of scrutiny and questioning without us really getting to be in the room. I think it sends a terrible leadership message in our district. And I do think if the overall policy has not been violated and the superintendent has some discretion and is able to take advantage of opportunity, I think that we should listen to those recommendations. I firmly believe if there's a written policy that needs to be changed, then we need to change it and we need to look at it. But I can't see that policy needing changing right now unless you, as a board, give me a policy change. Give me where you're going to change the language in our hiring process. This still feels micromanaging.
Madam President, can I call, with the absence of a motion to do anything, can we call a vote to extend this meeting past the 10 o'clock deadline we always do? This seems just dragging on. If we don't have a motion for the item, then we need to move on to consent or make a motion or get a consensus that we should keep going at this point.
You know, I'd like to table this as an agenda item. And we can talk about that in future board agenda items when we get to it. So right now, I'm going to call for the consent item agenda, and I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
What's
All
the
those in
motion?
favor?
I'm sorry, I need
consent item agenda.
So that's she made a motion to approve the consent item agenda?
Right,
Okay.
-7. We've already removed seven.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, now we're down to future board agenda items. I definitely think this is a big issue, and I think that we ought to put it on an agenda, and we ought to look at our policy of hiring and who makes the decisions and what kind of leeway we have. I want to see if we need to make a policy change, and, you know, where do we border on, you know, not appearing as a micromanaging board. I think that's really important. At the same time, keep the integrity behind board members that are doing work and researching and looking at things under scrutiny. I don't want to discourage that either. I think that's very, very important. But I want to see a policy shift because I think we're sending a policy review on this item. Would I get a consensus for folks on a board agenda item to look at hiring policy? Yes.
No.
I have two.
No.
Would that work?
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt your process.
Are you asking for a vote?
Well, I just need consensus to put it on the agenda. If there's three or more people.
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
Can I get a consensus? I don't need a formal vote to put hiring policy as a future board agenda item somewhere out in the future.
Who's hiring policy? The
Washington
board?
Unified.
Well, isn't that, is that micromanaging? Because it's their policy, it's not the board's policy.
No, it's the board's policy.
We set the policy.
We set the policy. That's what we do.
Doesn't it take two of us to want it on there?
She's not asking for a vote. She's asking for a
Okay.
consensus.
I agree.
It takes two of us, so we'll put it on there.
It takes how many?
I thought we weren't voting. I thought it was a consensus.
How many do they need?
Two, just two, to get on the
Bring
agenda.
it on the agenda.
Consensus is 3, I thought, just for giggles.
So is there some reason you don't want to talk about the hiring policy?
I already said no. I was very clear.
Okay, are there any other board agenda items that you want to bring forward? We have two listed: special board meeting to discuss capital investment program. I think that's a reminder for the 19th, the Tuesday night, and the organizational meeting. That's our next meeting in December.
I have some items that I'd like to add.
Okay.
I'd like to see the West Sac Early College Prep on our agenda for review in December. And then following up on a conversation I had with Dawn, I'd actually like to revisit the Chase Bank coming to River City High School. Safe Credit Union. Ooh, sorry.
Safe Credit Union. Okay.
Take that back. Safe Credit Union coming to River City High School. And possibly, I know in previous conversations they had talked about opening up a branch at the high school and getting our kids some banking experience, which I think is a really cool thing to do, and like to see that, the prospect of that possibly come back.
Okay.
We would just need seconds on each of those items and votes. Go ahead.
Are we doing them one at a time or per board member? Or
I'll do early college prep was a suggestion.
Need a second? You need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? I didn't think we had to do formal vote. I thought this was consensus for the agenda.
You need a vote.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
I can vote. We'll put it on the agenda. The next was Safe Credit, River City High School.
Aye.
We need a second. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So I have a possible agenda item, or maybe just an update to the board on the Bright School, the career tech. What's going on with that? Is anything moving, or? So I don't know if the board just wants an update, or I haven't heard anything lately.
Okay.
Bright School, the career tech.
I think that's going to be a part of the capital investment plan, the planning. It's a facility plan. So I think you'll hear more about that on Tuesday. Because that's a part of it.
It's on Tuesday?
So I don't know if we need that as a future agenda item, but I'll keep it down there. Doesn't matter. All right, and now I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.